like 6 times in the movie, so. Hard for another line. Yeah. It's on there. Oh, no, she's. Oh, sorry. It's on there. She don't come in from the. Took off that time. Oh, yeah. Maybe it's sitting right there.
Oh, I was waiting until
You could have gave me an extra day.
I thought so, but I want.
Read through the whole thing. Dang you. I got through like 4 pages of it, like, then I skimmed through the rest of it. I'm not a speed reader, unfortunately. Singles.
Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rock City Council meeting for August 20th, 2024. It is 6:37. Thanks for your patience while everybody had a little break. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I just want to remind everybody to silence their cell phones at this time. Yeah, we did have a closed session this evening, and I do not have any, or we don't have any reportable action at this time to report. So we'll skip to item number 5. Mr. Ledbetter, any special presentations and or comments? None, looks like, correct?
No, yeah, that's right, Mr. Mayor. No special presentations this evening.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the record to reflect that on closed session item, I believe that was B. Item 3B, Councilmember Kay did not participate in that due to an economic interest with a piece of property nearby.
All right. Please note, Ms. Clerk, that as the attorney stated that item 3B, Councilman Kay did recuse himself due to proximity and a financial possible benefit to that item.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So number 6, this is public comment. Public participation is welcomed and invited to all city council meetings. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the regular agenda. If your comments concern an item noted on the regular agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. The city requests that persons addressing the city council refrain from making personal, slanderous, profane, or disruptive remarks. Council members recognized by the mayor may ask clarifying questions of the presenter, but no action may be taken by the city council during the public comment section of the meeting. Under the Brown Act, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the posted agenda. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the agenda. If your comments concern are listed under the public hearing or new business section of the agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. Please speak into the microphone from the podium. The podium electronically adjusts up and down to accommodate the speaker. Please state your name for the record prior to providing your comments. Please address the council as a whole. If you have documents to present, please provide a minimum of 7 copies. These become public record. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Since council is unable to take action on issues not on the agenda, your matter may be referred to staff for follow-up or placed on a future agenda. The public comment period is not intended to be a question and answer period or conversations with council or city staff. Have any public comment at this time?
Mr. Mayor, this is the city manager. I just wanted to chime in at this point since the public comment does overlap onto the consent calendar here, the consent agenda, that staff is advocating to pull item 7D, the adoption of solar permitting software in compliance with Senate Bill 379. There's a couple things we want to take a look at on this item and bring back to you at the September meeting. And so if it pleases the council, we're going to pull that item.
Okay. So it's been requested that staff and from city manager Jason Ledbetter that item 7D be removed from the consent agenda. Is that okay with the council?
Yes.
Okay, so 7D is removed from the consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Public comment. All right, public comment. Just come on down to the podium.
I will change this from a question to what you said. My name is Andreas Economopoulos, who's a person with disability who's gone through a lot. And I want to let you know that I would like to start working with this town and the mayor and everybody. I have basically been working with people with developmental disabilities like me, even through Far Northern Regional Center in Reading, and been on the board I don't know how many times. And what I'd like to present to this town as a new type of item that we could talk about. You can tell me where I can get started later, because I know we have a lot to talk about. But folks, I've already starting my business working with people with disabilities to learn how to play piano, because I still hear professionals, not their fault. It's just that they don't know how to teach those with disabilities how to play piano. So I took it to myself for 2 years now through Impact Solutions here to start an experiment with that. And I'm now wanting to start my business. So what I want to talk to you though is not just me starting my business and figuring out how can we afford places to set up our business that can't be set up in an apartment, but other people with disabilities that are living here that I want to, instead of staying on SSI for a long time, it's time for us to learn how to be interested to set up a new kind of business in this town and get help. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Mr. Mayor, council people, my name is Ed Harris, and I'm a resident here in Wairika. Forgive me because I don't remember the protocol from when I sat on that side of the desk. If we can speak to items during the meeting, so I'll take the public comment section to talk about the encampment issue that you're going to be addressing for a second reading tonight.
You'll come back to that item when we come up for that.
You want me to wait for the public?
Yeah, for that
comment
public,
at that
yeah,
time?
at that
Okay.
time. But anything else you want to talk about before you sit down? Or
No,
was that it?
That'll be it. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Another public comment? All right, move on to item number 7, consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted under the motion unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item up for discussion. So we have items 7, A through C. D is removed. A is approval ratification of payments issued from July 27, 2024 through August 10th, 2024. B, approval of minutes on the regular agenda held August 6th, 2024. C, adoption of resolution 2024-37, finding certain city vehicles and equipment as surplus property, authorized sale by the city manager. What are the wishes of the council?
So move.
I have a motion from Councilman Kaeg
I'll second that, please.
and a second from Councilman Davis. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Pro Tem Councilman McCoy.
Aye.
And Mayor Middleton, aye, so the motion passes. Okay, item number 8, this is old business. City manager, A, agenda title, housing options and housing projects for the unhoused community. Mr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Wairika City Council members. This is Jason Ledbetter, the city manager. So we're going to talk about kind of at the last meeting that came up, what's happening with the projects, or what is the hypothetical plan when it comes to how the city is engaging homelessness. And I really took that information and read between the lines or the inferences here to say, what type of housing options has the city or the county worked on in order to alleviate this issue? So at the August 6th regularly scheduled City of Wairika City Council meeting, this was brought up by Mayor Pro Tempore Paul McCoy, requested to discuss the current plan and or development of a plan to combat homelessness. Staff has put together a list of projects from the county and the city that are currently in process. Or being worked on or awaiting direction from the city council. So I'm now going to read you the following list of projects with a little synopsis of what that project entails. So we have the Crossroads project. This is a permanent supportive housing. Services will be on site for at least 30 years. 24 housing units are for severe and persistent mental illness and or chronically homeless individuals, and 25 housing units are for low income. This has coordinated entry via the HMIS Vulnerability Index. The county social workers will be staffed on site during work hours to provide case management. And this project's construction is now complete and the units are being filled. My discussion with Dr. Collard at the county from her perspective was that 8 individuals that were technically living on the street in Wairika are actually now housed at this location. So it is being utilized in that fashion. Next, the pallet shelter, which I'm not sure the community is too familiar with. It's been discussed internally here at City Council. And so the city of Wairika and the county of Siskiyou are partnering on a pallet shelter project that will provide 15 to 18 beds in individual and doubles, small non-congregate shelter units. So they call them pallet shelters because they basically just arrive on a pallet and you could put a tiny house together. At first, it sounds like, there was a fad where everything was made out of a pallet there for a while on Pinterest. So, the target client is the care court population for the pallet shelters, and the proposed open date for this facility is November of this year, 2024, as the county has already received a grant and the project is currently moving forward. So the city is making improvements to the lot on what I would consider lower foothill near the Ag Commission area on that street, and really it's the parcel right next to Beacon of Hope. And so we would anticipate seeing a lease agreement in front of this council in the near future to sign in order for the county to facilitate taking over and operating this pallet shelter location. Third, we have a low barrier shelter, which I think most people in the community are familiar with at this point. This is a 32-bed low barrier congregate style shelter with beds. So this would be like one open room per se, congregate style, versus if you're in a motel, you're non-congregate, you're in your own space. This is a County of Siskiyou project that is nearing completion. This low barrier shelter will have the most immediate impact for reducing those currently living in public spaces. We are told this project is currently about 30 to 60 days from opening. So fourth, we have just really more of an idea at this point. It is called Home Key. This is a conversion of a motel into non-congregate shelter for those experiencing homelessness. If you're like me and you take the back way between Ashland and Medford, when you get coming up on, say, where all the used car sales locations are, you'll notice a number of these. They're called something different in each state, but they're very similar. So you'll see all of these motels that all of a sudden have been completely renovated and are essentially apartment style complexes for non-congregate shelters. So it's a very similar style. So the city of Wairika is working with Danco and currently interviewing interested motel owners in Wairika to determine if a grant application for a home key project will get completed for city council review and direction. So the city council still has an opportunity to approve or disapprove that project if we're capable of getting a deal worked out with the motel owner. Along with the low barrier shelter, this model offers the highest potential to get the unhoused camping in the community into a secure living situation. Next, we have the voucher program. And this may be a misnomer from my communication with Madeline Bryan at the county, but the county of Siskiyou manages a robust, what I consider to be called a motel voucher program, but it is essentially just grant monies where they can take people and provide them some level of housing immediately. So I'm not familiar with the current figures, but I was aware that there were basically grant monies during ARPA that had a substantial amount of money being utilized for this population. And I do have some figures I want to grab real quick. So I've been told by Madeline Bryan that social services is currently providing interim housing in motels for 6 households or 17 individuals. And then they are also providing other housing services such as rental assistance and other like programs for a total of 17 other households or 41 individuals. Next, there's shared homes. This is also a county program. So the county of Siskiyou also operates 3 shared homes for mental health diversion within the county. We also have low income projects for housing, or what we commonly refer to as workforce housing coming. The city council had approved 2 different grant opportunities for our low income provider partner, Danco. The city of Wairika has approved 2 different grant applications in support of Danco developing a phase 1 45 unit low income property near Deer Creek. And affordable housing options are considered preventative measures to combating homelessness. There is obviously a correlation between the cost of housing and how many people end up on the street. And then what's the data look like? You know, we have the chair of the COC here, Mr. Kaeg. And so my understanding, you know, the Siskiyou County 2024 Affordable Housing Needs Report key findings. This is fascinating information. 897 low-income renter households in Siskiyou County do not have access to an affordable home. State and federal funding for housing production and preservation in Siskiyou County is $11 million, and this is a 56% decrease from the prior year. 66% of extremely low-income households in Siskiyou County are paying more than half of their income on housing costs, compared to 0% of moderate income households. I just want to read that again. 66% of low income households in Siskiyou County are paying more than half of their income on their housing costs, compared to 0% of the moderate income households. So that means, obviously, what we all know in the system, the less money you have, the more complicated your life seems to get. Renters in Siskiyou County need to earn $18.19 per hour to afford the average monthly asking rent of $946 in the county. Siskiyou County point in time count numbers as reported in the Siskiyou Daily News article on June 8th of 2023 were 507 people in 2023 as compared to 321 people in 2022 for the totality of the county as a whole. So a major increase in counted homeless individuals within the county year over year, from 321 in 2022 to 507 in 2023. And this is the federal government program, folks. This is the not the greatest day of the year that you do this. This is always counted on the last weekend, I think, in January. There's a ton of snow on the ground, so you're more likely to find less people. So the number is probably higher than that. So ultimately, why I'm here to give you this information is to hopefully spur a discussion here with the council to discuss the current list of known projects that are completed or in process and attempt to provide housing for those living and experiencing homelessness while providing input on the possibility of future projects. So just to understand the projects that are in queue, and if you want to advise or direct the city staff to move forward, bringing more opportunity. This is inevitably, though, what we would consider as the COC, the Continuum of Care Group, and then myself and Sarah Collard as the plan currently. And I will be available for questions.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Council members, do you have questions for Mr. Ledbetter?
Of course.
Councilman Baker.
Mr. Ledbetter, thank you for this information. It's invaluable, and I'm a little bit stunned at the figures. I just thought that they would be housing opportunities would be available to more people, especially the voucher program, because I always hear secondhand that, oh, people can just go get a voucher to stay in a motel. And you stated there were 41 individuals right now that are currently housed under the voucher program. Is that correct?
I think it's actually less than that, and it looks like it's about 17 individuals that are currently getting housing in a motel, and then 41 individuals that are getting other services, including rental assistance and what other opportunities the county can provide. But you're raising some interesting and good points, and from this information from Madeline Bryan, it's very difficult sometimes to work these grant programs, and then the timing of the grant programs end, but ultimately they're using every last penny they have to put people in housing. And it's generally that they don't have enough money to put the rest of the folks out on the street in housing currently.
I'm just curious, and you may not have this information, but I'm just curious about the demand for the vouchers. I'm just curious about how many people are actually asking for vouchers versus how many people are actually receiving them. So I actually would like to follow up with the county on that to get an idea of how many people that are experiencing homelessness right now that really would like to be housed through the voucher program. So I appreciate that. I know that I had asked you for this additional information, so I appreciate that. The pallet shelter, in your staff report, you say that the target client for that is the care court population. And again, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but is care court currently operating in the county, or has that program started?
You know, I can't factually answer that question because it seems to be kind of a hearsay tall tale. I know Dwayne and I have talked quite a bit about care court, but I can get an answer to that question or both of these questions and give that information to you via email, and then also provide it at the next city council meeting so it's in the public record.
Thank you. And then you also mentioned the Beacon of Hope, and I'm just curious if anybody on the council has the current status of the Beacon of Hope. And I believe that we may have some members in the audience tonight that may want to give some public comment about that. So I really appreciate you putting all this information together for us. And just we'll close with thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baker. Any other council members?
Just make a comment on some of that.
Councilman Gag?
As far as the pallet shelter structure goes, that primarily is through some of the care court, like you're talking about, that it does capture a certain we want to say individuals that the shelter would not standardly capture. So I know from interviewing a lot of the individuals that Some of them would not go to the regular shelter structure because of being next to somebody else, and some of them don't, you know, just like some of us don't play good with others. So they would rather have their own little, basically individual place to go. So that's why, going to some of these services that Mr. Ledbetter has talked about, and what's going on with the county and COC and some other entities, Beacon Hope and stuff, that having different avenues to address homelessness addresses homelessness as a whole, not as an individual. So you're able to capture certain individuals that would not go to certain places. So to have different avenues, it is beneficial for the city to have all these different avenues to get them to get individuals off the street and hopefully into some type of program to help them better their lives and be productive citizens or just better themselves, period. Another thing that I think we need to address as a council and look into is what Medford has been doing, and that's the urban campground. And we can address that in different ways. Some places now are starting to address urban campground as like a 24-hour or overnight campground. So that's something for the council to think about too, as possibly doing an urban campground for an overnight stay, to keep individuals off the streets. There's a lot of times we got to understand the individuals are getting released from the jail or something like that and don't have a place to go. So it's another avenue to look at. And so I really encourage, the council to think about that, as an urban campground, possibly as an overnight stay campground, maybe. But in regards to an urban campground, those are regulated. They also have service providers there that would encourage individuals to get services, to get hooked up with services. And it's not just a free place to stay, but it's also some type of accountability to where they hopefully can get them hooked up with services and stuff too. That's what they do up in Medford on their urban campground, is they have a person there 24/7 and they're trying to hook them up with services and stuff too. So I just wanted to discuss that tonight with the council as a possibility to think about, as an urban campsite, but with the restrictions of, overnight stay type thing. So hopefully get them into another place, maybe a shelter, into the pallet shelter, into some type of rehab program or whatnot. So that was there. I don't know if there's anything else, that you'd like me to address too, that on some of your discussion topics, but there's a number of different things. Number wise, he's, right, 507, 321 previously. We can go on and on and on. Numbers fluctuate. So some of the voucher system that Mr. Ledbetter is discussing, they vary each month. There's quite a bit of variations on some of those vouchers, depending on how the grant's structured, depending on who has those vouchers. There's different entities around town that has it. It's not just the county. People got to realize that there's a resource center, they have vouchers. There's other places that actually hold vouchers too. So it's not just the county. So those vouchers vary. So those numbers weren't reflected in that either, as far as that voucher system, because like I said, the resource center does it. The Siskiyou Domestic Violence has a voucher system. We actually, the PD actually can hand out voucher systems too. So there's actually some other numbers in that weren't reflective in that too, but his numbers are very accurate on on everything. I appreciate him bringing those numbers and bringing that. That was a lot of research that Mr. Ledbetter did, and I appreciate that. So
may I ask you a question, Councilmember Cake?
yes.
So in this report, it refers to the point in time count of 507
Correct.
people who are homeless. But I'm understanding that there are people who are camping, but we also have what has been what I've heard referred to as the invisible homeless, that are like couch surfing,
Correct.
Staying with friends here and there. Are those people reflected in that
No.
507?
No, generally not, because what happens on anybody that's couch surfing or anything like that, they will not be counted because they actually have a place that they're staying. So in other words, they're
Okay.
staying in a house that has services, has electricity, water, any of those resources. A trailer a trailer that's hooked up to services, hooked up to sewer, water is not counted. That is not
Okay.
an house individual either. So there's a lot of numbers that don't reflect in that 507. There's also people when we're actually going out and doing these surveys that refuse to take the survey. So those individuals aren't necessarily surveyed either. There is actually a way you can survey or get their numbers, but it's only 1/10 of those individuals can be counted. So in other words, you have 10 individuals that refuse to do the survey. 10 of those individuals, only one of those individuals can technically be counted. Now, whether or not that happens all over, it's not. I know in the bigger cities, for a matter of fact, that the bigger cities are kind of fibbing those numbers because there's no way in San Francisco, LA, that they're achieving those numbers properly. It's impossible. They don't have the manpower. We struggle with the amount of individuals we have in Siskiyou County to go out and survey a lot of these individuals. And we have, 507 that we've counted, And so you talking, what was the latest number in San Francisco? They estimate that at the last point I did was 25,000 homeless individuals in the city of San Francisco alone. So how do you survey that? You never would have enough manpower to survey those. So yeah, the accuracy of the numbers they're never accurate. And I can stand in front of a court of law and show all the discrepancies on those numbers because there is a lot of discrepancies on both ways though, just so you know.
Thank you.
These are county numbers. County.
Counting?
City, county.
Yes, county. That's 507. Yes, for clarification, 507 is county-wide numbers, not city numbers. And those are sheltered and unsheltered. So the sheltered ones would be people that are in voucher systems, are in structured setups like that. So there's two different classifications when you talk about that. That 507 encompasses those two numbers, the sheltered and unsheltered. So it's just for clarification on that too.
Thank you.
Mr.
Right.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, I have some new information that has come to me on the hotline, and that is ultimately that Care Court is mandated to start in Siskiyou County in December of this year. And so that's what I'm being told.
Thank you.
Is that it? Council Baker? You're okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Councilman Davis?
I had excuse me, Mr. Ledbetter and I took a little walk down to the low barrier shelter called home base. We've called them both. And yeah,
Yes, Cam.
gave us a tour of the facility. I believe that it's a little bit away because the kitchen and the showers and the restrooms are still just holes in the floor. However, the positive thing is that the bedding area is quite full. I mean, not with people, but with bunk beds and sleeping places. Probably if she was allowed, she could probably house some folks down there in the sleeping part. And as the construction progresses, that would be on a positive note there. But she could shut that part off, and the contractor could proceed forward. But she'd have to want to do that because it would put in a lot of people probably in the way, but maybe not. But it was very, very excellent tour, very informative. I even got a little point on how to build a chicken coop, and so it was all good. It was all good. It's really working hard to make a positive experience from the low base shelter, and I'm really impressed with her work. And if any way that we can help her, that was my first question: is how can we help you? And I was thinking with money, and no, it's not really that. She's got plenty of that. It's to get some of the roadblocks out of the way, maybe the permit to operate a sleeping place or something like that. This was just some thoughts that ran across my mind. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Davis.
Thank you.
Councilman McCoy?
Can I ask a question of Councilman Davis? I like the way you're thinking, when you're looking at, when you're talking about the permits, are you talking about temporary use permits or things like that?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay. I think that's forward thinking.
Mhm.
I appreciate, Mr. Ledbetter putting this on the agenda and talking about it. I appreciate, it's nice to see Dawn here, Langford, because I've worked with Dawn for several years on Beacon of Hope, and I look forward to them, hopefully maybe the next couple of years opening, and that gives us maybe 13 more beds. I know that he's got a real heart for unhoused or unsheltered or homeless, whatever we want to call them. The reason I asked for this to be put on came out of my concern at the last meeting when we decided as a council that we were going to pass a resolution on camping that would then excommunicate the people off of the hill and off of Deer Creek and out of the Greenway and other areas to be moved, to be cited and moved off of those areas. And my only concern with that is not doing it. It's not having a place for our homeless to go. And I think that we will help. I think that I know we help a lot. I've had 2 people I think I've taken to the bus station with the cooperation of YPD. I know one of our local citizens, Steve Radford, worked with one, helped him to get to a bus station. That's not the answer. The answer isn't going around and, saying, we're going to put you on a bus and you're going to go home. But we have had YPD work with us on that. We've also had the veterans work with us on getting simple things like DD2 14s for veterans that needed them for services. Everybody has a slightly different story. But I think that going ahead with passing a resolution that's going to be punitive at this point, when we have nowhere for them to go, they're going to be up in my neighborhood, your neighborhood. Well, they're in your neighborhood right now. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. They're going to be in yours and Corey's and everybody out here. And the thing is, our city attorney, I think, has talked about like Jell-O. When you squeeze Jell-O in your fingers, where does it go? It shoots out. That's what we're going to do. We're going to squeeze them. So I think it's imperative that we put together a plan. I think it's imperative that we dictate what the problem is. We did this over a period of months with our fire department when we were looking at what we wanted to do. And we found out that necessarily the issues that some of us thought were big issues were not, because we got a lot of feedback. And so, and now we're working towards that, towards remedying that, getting a new fire hall and getting 4 paid firefighters. I think we need to do the same thing with this. I think one of our people in the audience 2 weeks ago said we need to define the issue, the problem, and then we need to work backwards from there. And what we've done is we've defined the symptom, and now we're working forward from there. Well, we're treating the symptom is never going to solve the problem. And so that's why I thank you for bringing in the numbers. I look at it right now, and I'm looking at, once everything except, not home key, once everything but home key's done, we'll have somewhere around 77, 80 beds without any vouchers or anything like that. After that, we could have as many as 40 or 42 more beds. My concern again is, where do we put the people? Some are going to get off homelessness. Some are going to want to get off homelessness. Some will move when push comes to shove. We know that too. But what do we do with the ones that are staying? Have them sleeping on Main Street? Have them sleeping on Minor in front of the businesses? Have them sleeping down maybe in Walmart parking lot? We got to have a place for them to go. So it's not that we don't, I'm not saying we don't need to pass an ordinance. Passing an ordinance at this point does nothing but treat a symptom. And we have a problem that we're not addressing as a council and as a city. So I want to thank you again. I would like to see more thought on this. I would also like to see the ordinance tabled until we can figure out, where we're going. And I do agree with Councilman Keg that a campground, yeah, managed, but we have to look at other places like we've looked at Rogue Retreat and some of those places up in Medford, and it needs to be managed at that level. So again, I want to thank you all for your input before I turn it over to Corey, and thank you again. Jake.
Mr. Mayor, when you get to your statement, I'd like to actually have one more.
I'll let you go really fast before I go. Good. Councilman Keg.
Okay, so in addressing what Mr. McCoy stated on treating the symptom, absolutely. As far as the state and federal government goes, that's how they've been addressing the problem from day one. It's addressing the symptom and not addressing the core of the problem. When we do these point in time surveys, there's a lot of questions that are real personal questions on here. Some of the questions are you going through some type of mental illness or some type of disability of that sort? Almost over 50%, close to 60%, admittedly having some mental disorder or going through a mental illness crisis. Same amount of people, about around 50 to 60% of individuals also admit, not the same, those individuals, but the same percentage, I should say, admit to having some type of disorder of substance disorder or alcohol abuse disorder of some sort too. So if you want to treat the true symptoms stop treating the symptoms and treating the core of the problem, you need to address those problems. Back in the 1980s, the Reagan administration shut down all of the mental facilities, and we seen a huge spike in homelessness at that point in time. And a lot of people out there are nailed in their heads because they lived that. And yes, we did live that. And it's a true fact. I actually had a client that came in and stated that she was a social worker down in the Bay Area when that took place. And she watched thousands of individuals get displaced with no game plan whatsoever, none. And so, if we want to treat the core of the problem, we need to treat those things. Quit treating the symptoms and start treating the core of the problem. But if you really want to fix the problem, you fix the youth. That's where you fix the problem. Plain and simple. Programs like Yes, some of these other programs that actually help the youth get them off the streets and treat the core of the problem. That is the true core of the problem is fixing the youth before they become homeless. The individual they've numbers will show, I can't remember what the exact numbers are, but if the kids are going through homelessness at a young age, it's a lifetime problem that they will be going through homelessness, drug addiction, or some other problems of that sort. So you want to fix the problem, there's where you fix the problem. You treat the youth, you fix it that way. So we can go into a lifetime of debates on how to address this problem. But the fact is, how do we fix it as a city? And our hands are tied only to a certain extent. What this court case with Grants Pass, Johnson versus Grants Pass and Martin versus Boise, but Johnson versus Grants Pass, the verdict on that changed the way, a lot of cities are doing things. But it's still not fixing the problem. So we need to figure out what that means as a nation, not just as a city. Our hands are still tied. There's going to be other court cases guaranteed. I've already read on some other ones that are coming through the pipeline right now, lawsuits which we knew were going to happen in regards to this. So we need to figure out what that means. And Mr. McCoy is right on that aspect that we need to address the core of the problem. Absolutely. And so I think that's as a city, we need to figure out a game plan. We do have some stuff in front of us tonight that we need to figure out first. But we do need to figure out a game plan on how we keep addressing the situation on the long-term effect of how we address that. We got individuals right now on the streets that people know who they are. There have been lifelong citizens here. You feel sorry for them. And I'll say first name only. Everybody knows Tyler. Tyler, it's a sad thing. His grandparents, grandfather was a prominent figure in this town, in this county, and he's on the streets. He's wandering around the streets. So how do we fix individuals like that? If those people like that, if we can't fix them, he will die on the streets, guaranteed. He will die on the streets. And so we need to figure out how to address those in a proper way. But also look at how we keep our citizens safe, protect our citizens, and keep everybody to where they can enjoy the parks, enjoy everything we have to offer in this city. And we have to look at the picture as a whole. So it's a big project. And if we can figure that one out, we'll answer the $1 million question, because I'll tell you what, no other city has been able to solve that problem. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for going on longer than you wanted me to.
That wasn't real quick, but I'm going to forgive you. All right. I don't have much to say from last meeting. Is just that, I think I got called out as being soft, but I just want to, and that's what it is, so be it. But I want to remind everybody that the group of people, the in-house we're talking about, are human beings. And so we got to remember that I'm sure, they're not living their best lives. I'm sure that's going to be all they know. But also there's, as I stated, one size doesn't fit all, because we have drug use, we have mental illness up there, we have several different issues we're dealing with. So as several council members have stated, we have to address issues of bringing back mental health facilities, treatment, whatever it might be. But I hear the citizens. I know they're getting tired of the crime, tired of looking at the mess. And I live in the town as well, so I see it every day. So I don't need to be asked if I've driven by the hill. I drive by it every day. I know where it's at. I look at it and I deal with it as well. So I'm frustrated as well. But as they said, we need to deal with the core issue. And I just want to remind people about what we put into place as an ordinance. It's everything as an ordinance is enforceable by law, whatever we have in our books. It's just more rules and more enforcement. Do we have, enough to enforce? And that's what we have to plan. We can't just react of the governor coming out or the Supreme Court. We have to be very cautious of how we proceed as a city and what that looks like. Just not jump to, oh, let's get this done really fast because they said we can do it. Well, as we see, there's lawsuits coming down the channel since the Supreme Court has already ruled their decision. There's already been lawsuits filed against other cities already, and that's only been about a month, I guess, a little over a month, correct? And so I think we're proceeding in the right way. For cities or towns that have been ready, or they have facilities such as low barrier shelters, they have pallet shelters, they have facilities for them to go. Even with cities that have those, they still have homeless. So homeless is not going to go away. I hear citizens saying, please approve this, make the homeless go away problem. It's not going to make it go away. So I just want to make sure, but we can start enforcing. And we can start enforcing some rules. We can start getting cleaned up. We can start working with the county to, step up and hopefully start giving individuals the help they need if they receive it. A lot of people aren't going to receive it. So we got to be very aware of that everybody's not going to want to have the help that is out there. But we have to start somewhere. And yeah, so I know we have a lot of citizens, a lot of businesses that are tired, but we have to approach it, very cautious. And but we need to start doing something because the past isn't working. Anyways, that's all I will say. And so I'm gonna go to public comment. Yes, we're gonna be here forever. I'll go to public comment. So I know somebody wanted
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yep.
Actually, Mr. Jared has a comment that I
okay.
think is very wise.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then I'll go to public comments, okay, after that, or,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
members of the council. It's very clear that there are 3 items on tonight's agenda dealing with 3 issues. One, this report on homeless or opportunities for shelter for people experiencing homelessness. There is the resolution dealing with the policy regarding encampments, and there's the second reading of the ordinance.
great. Mhm.
The 3 are interrelated. And as we experienced somewhat last time, and as my experience has been with other cities, the 3 are very convoluted or interrelated, not convoluted, interrelated. And I think that people's comments on that will tend to lead from one to one in the other. And so be my recommendation that you discuss the 3 together.
Okay.
And we could either go on with the presentation on the ordinance, the presentation on the resolution, and then have public comment on that, and then have council discussion on the action for all 3. Or we could take them as 3 separate items and have 3 distinct public comment periods. But I think we're going to get into a lot of, the topic is the shelter discussion. The topic is the resolution. So however you like to approach it, I think it might be more efficient to have a brief discussion on the ordinance, a brief discussion on the resolution, then have the public comment on that for the public to discuss everything they want to discuss, and we don't end up with that back and forth interruption type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so go all 3, then come to public comment. Okay. All right.
So that being said, I think it'd be appropriate, if that's the approach you want to take. with The
Yes.
agenda, then it'd be next up would be item 8B to introduce the discussion on the resolution that we weren't able to have last time because of the printing issue.
Right.
And have staff presentation on that, council questions for clarification. Then staff presentation on the ordinance, council questions for clarification, and then public comment on all of the 8 items together.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I think we already gave Mr. Ledbetter what it said for the city council, the possible action to discuss the current. So we discussed and just continue working on future housing, correct?
Again, so you'd have to take public
Okay.
comment on that in order for the council to provide that direction.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to the next
So the
item.
next
So we do all
item would
3.
be
Okay,
item
item B.
8B.
Okay.
It's a resolution
Thank you.
establishing.
I got off track. Okay. So we'll go to 8B. So this is city attorney's agenda title, the resolution establishing procedures for the notice, removal, and storage of personal property at encampments and finding such action exempt from CEQA. I'm sorry. Mr. Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item before you was agendized last meeting. There was a printing error where the attachment to the resolution was not provided. That has been provided here, and that is starting at page 67, 66. Page 67 of the agenda packet has the exhibit that is the policy that is being proposed for the notice, removal, and storage of personal property from encampment removal sites. This item comes before you because of the comment essentially made by Governor Newsom that cities should adopt a policy similar to what Governor Newsom adopted for all state agencies. And the California Department of Transportation had adopted a policy several years ago regarding encampment removal and storage of property, et cetera, on Caltrans property. And what Governor Newsom did is took that Caltrans policy and applied it statewide to state lands for agencies that were under his control. He then encouraged cities and counties and other local agencies to do the same. And so that's what's before you is to consider that. You're not required to. However, it's very highly recommended to have some policies in writing that you would abide by, or your staff would abide by, when doing any type of encampment cleanup. And it covers basically two components. One, the actual encampment clearing, and two, the storage of property. It sets standards for both of those two. And with the encampment clearing, there's effectively two types of encampment clearing. There's one that has to happen because of some sort of exigent circumstance, a fire danger, the Caltrans policy mentions people camping directly next to a building that might fall down or some hazard like that. Camping in a hazardous situation, like in the median of a highway or on a median of a street, something of that nature. So there are those situations where little or no notice would be recommended. There are other situations where more advanced notice, and that's your typical encampment situation. So I can see situations where if it's an extreme fire danger, giving people no notice and explaining that this needs to happen immediately, and causing the encampment to be addressed that way. Places where there's less of an exigent circumstance, then giving notice would be required. There is, and so the staff report speaks for itself. The resolution starting on page 66, that is just a vehicle to have you act on. The real meat of this is Exhibit A to that resolution. And that's the policy. And that's the policy that staff would be looking at, and you would be setting these rules for staff to abide by. So this is your opportunity to directly tell staff how they need to do things. There are, since writing this and taking this effectively from the Caltrans approach, tweaking it a little bit to the city's situation, there are 3 recommendations that I have to further amend this. And that is on page 68, the priority 2 level notice to vacate. The policy has been published says that at least 48 hours before beginning encampment removal, that a notice be posted. I would actually recommend that you increase that to 72 hours notice. That's my recommendation to you based on some case law that's out there of what is reasonable. It's been my experience that that's what most other cities are doing. But again, the 48 hours is apparently what the state is going to go with. There is a case that is looked at called Levan at a city of LA that looks for a longer period of time, 72 hours. So my recommendation would be to increase that as it's published from 48 hours to 72 hours. My second recommendation is on page 69 of the staff report or of the agenda packet, removal operations. So once property has been taken and stored, that property needs to be stored for a period of time. Here, again, the state of California is saying 60 days is reasonable. And I've discussed that in the staff report. And for certain types of property, in the staff report, I made an argument of why that would be appropriate. However, for other types of property that may be at issue, staff would have to be storing it for 90 days based on state law. And additionally, staff would have to store other types of property in its inventory for 120 days based on one of your city codes that says that lost property would need to be stored for 120 days. So my recommendation to you is to discuss this and make a decision as to the extension of that. What's posted here is 60 days. My recommendation is that you put that at least for 90 days and consider going to 120 days. So there's uniformity for staff to not be confused as to which property is, and then we have an argument with a member of the public as to, well, that was really lost property, should have been kept longer versus abandoned property, kept shorter. So there's a way to solve that, prevent that type of argument that might happen in the future, and just call it all to direct staff to keep that property for 120 days, keep it all uniform. My third recommendation is for a change here, again on page 69, under 4 C4, paper notices to vacate shall be filled out completely and include. And so this goes to the information that you're requiring to be on one of the notices that are posted in an encampment. The policy is presented requires there be 6 things on that notice. I'm recommending that we add an additional item on there, and that has to do with you providing or requiring staff put a statement on there dealing with how someone can request a reasonable accommodation under ADA, Americans with Disability Act. And this would be very similar to the statement that's on our council agenda. On the last page of the council agenda, someone can make a request for reasonable accommodation to be in council chambers. It's been there forever. And so ADA rules, they don't require us to have that in this policy, but it's just going to be a good statement. If I'm tasked with drafting one of these notices, I'm going to put it in there, but it's a way that you can make sure that your policy is putting an ADA reasonable accommodation request process in your policy already. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. If there's any questions or clarification about the resolution and the policy, I think it'd be appropriate to take those questions now. But again, we're not at the point to have debate or discussion about this. That would come after public comment. So.
Okay. Council members, any questions for Mr. Jared? Councilman Davis?
Right. That's right. The wording that I have is G, the manner for requesting reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so that's you requiring staff to post on, have a sentence on there on that notice and requiring them to explain what the manner is for a person experiencing homelessness who has a disability to request a reasonable accommodation associated with this policy. So.
All right. Any other council members, questions or comments? Okay. Then we'll move on to item 8. C. Sorry.
So now to address item 8C, this is the second reading of the ordinance, and the recommended action 8C is the second reading of ordinance number 878, amending chapter 9.45, protection of school children, bus stops, critical infrastructure, and wildfire risk areas, and of the Wairika Municipal Code, and for it to be called camping and storage of property in public places prohibited, and amending chapter 50 park regulations and the finding of CEQA exemption. So again, this item is the second reading of the ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting. This ordinance does several things. The primary thing that it does is it takes your current sit-lie, what's commonly called the sit-lie ordinance, or what's called previously in the city, the critical infrastructure ordinance, and amends that to be a citywide no camping ordinance. So this would be a ban on camping citywide on all public property. And so it would apply not only to city property that is vacant, but it would apply to city property of the right of way, streets, sidewalks, property that is a park. The under 9.45, under 9.50, the park regulations are also amended under this ordinance. And so this now, there would no longer be the limitation of camping within a specific distance from certain things, like a bus stop, like a school area, a school route, an area where children are found, the critical infrastructure items. Instead, those would all be included as part of the citywide prohibition on camping. This ordinance also puts what might be called some teeth into the enforcement. The prior enforcement was an unspecified monetary penalty that could be worked off. This instead provides for a graduated penalty provision, and culminating in this being a violation being filed as a misdemeanor, and which would mean imprisonment up to 6 months for on the third offense occurring within a year. And that graduated penalty provision would be where is it? $50 for the first offense, $200 for the second offense, and $500 for a third offense, and then imprisonment, seeking imprisonment and or fine on that third offense. And again, there is the ability to still the ability to pay determination that has not been recommended to be eliminated. But again, you can make those determinations. Previously, there was also a discussion about the filing of charges and prosecutorial discretion. And so that again goes along with every city code and every code, vehicle code, penal code, all of that. There's no liability for not filing a prosecutory agency, not filing something. And so what this does is by passing this ordinance, it's you giving staff the ability to impose penalties or seek the imposition of penalties through the court process. Are there any questions that I could answer to clarify any issues associated with the ordinance?
Council members, questions? Council Baker?
Thank you so much. Mr. Jared, can you go over the timeframes for if this ordinance is adopted tonight? It's my understanding that it would take effect in 30 days.
Correct.
Would it be possible for this council to include as part of the action tonight to make it effective at a later date? I mean, a specific later date, say, 60, 90 days. We have the authority to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, by passing it tonight, the ordinance as a law on your books would be effective after a 30-day period. On the 31st day, then absent some direction to staff to not enforce, staff could then enforce this ordinance. But it is not unheard of for councils to say that to give that direction to in the next, after enforcement or even now, giving advance notice that on this date, whether it's October 1st, December 1st, May 31st, whatever date you choose, that's when enforcement will happen.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
just,
Mr. Ledbetter.
Mr. Mayor and Council Member Baker, this is the city manager, Jason Ledbetter. On that note, I think that if that is the case, it's really important that all 5 of you understand that that has to happen in this space during a public meeting and not as a individual phone call to me on when to enforce. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Councilman Cake?
I just wanted some clarification on the, I think it was, or Ms. Baker actually brought up last time on the fines and penalties, that that sort of thing can be implemented in different ways. If the individual does go to court, then they could be asked or forced to go to some type of programs or whatnot also, correct?
That's right. And I mean, the way this reads, the penalty provision is that a fine of $50 shall be, it's a maximum penalty.
Right.
And so what happens when going to court often is that the prosecutor, the city prosecutor, would ask for diversion and seek essentially a plea bargain with the person violating. And the court would then issue an order, okay, the imposition of a fine, the imposition of jail time is stayed for typically a period of 1 year. If that person obeys all laws, and often there's a stay away order associated with things of that nature, that they don't go back to that particular spot and violate the law again. And then if everything's good after that, then the court says, come back in a year. And if the parties come back in a year and you can give the report, there's been no further violations, then the actual violation is effectively waived. And so that's one way it's dealt with. But as you're suggesting, yeah, another way that it's dealt with is the fine just isn't even imposed. It's noted on the record that yes, they violated the law, and that's what, but there's no monetary penalty imposed. That can happen as well. It all becomes on a case-by-case basis at the final stage. But what you would be setting tonight would be the maximum that could be done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Councilman Cake? Any other further questions?
I do.
Councilman?
As far as
Coy?
cost goes, Mr. Jared, let's say that, let's just look at one case that we take to a misdemeanor, and then there's a need to appear. We have to have you come up from Pasadena and litigate this. What's our cost based on letters that you will have written and you making the trip up here? What's it gonna cost the city per case at the very least?
I can give an estimate. I mean, if the estimate is, travel on its own, hearing on its own, probably $2,000 to $3,000. If it's worked in with another case, if it's worked in with other appearances, of course, that's much less.
Let's assume it's just, it's an appearance here. I'm assuming somebody has to have written some letters to this person. There has to be some correspondence, and I'm going to assume that we don't have anybody in our office that can send that. I may be wrong. You correct me if I'm wrong. And so you're saying about $2,000 to $3,000 if you have to fly up and just appear in court to litigate what little bit needs to be litigated.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. So if there's no further questions from council at this time, and I'll open up to public comment for all 3 items that we've been discussing. This is A, B, and C for public comment.
Don Mariachi. Yeah. First of all, We've had a homeless problem for 12 plus years. We've done nothing about, absolutely nothing. It'll go away. It'll go away. We hired some guy to come and give this big presentation about if you build a shelter, they'll all come. Well, we didn't build a shelter and they all still came. So I think that we need to recognize that we've had this problem for a long time. And we need to start doing something right now before we start making all these laws. And it doesn't help anything, because are we going to build a city police station? Because there isn't any room in the county jail, and there won't be any room in the county jail. So I'm thinking that making them a criminal and putting them in jail isn't going to work for us unless we start busing them out of here to a jail somewhere else. It's not very smart to do that. We really need shelters. We really need urban campgrounds. We really need someplace to put these people before we get a ton of other people that are getting thrown off from other places. We need to deal with our stuff, make a plan and enforce that plan. Don't make a plan that's going to criminalize a bunch of things and give people fines that they can't even pay for. That is ridiculous. They have no money. If they had money, they'd have a place. And you know, when we start talking about the point in time count, I have begged the COC to do a point in time count during the summer where we could get real live numbers. Maybe I should have been asking the city. Maybe this city needs to do that with the county. And you guys tell the county it needs to be done so we can get an actual accurate number, because that 507 is mostly in Wairika. We all know that. Mount Shasta might have 15. And at most times they bring them back here and then they'll make their way back because they're from there. And you know, weed, I don't even know if weed has any. Etna has absolutely none. You know, when you start looking at the county as a whole, Wairika is the county seat. They're next to behavioral health because that is where they get help at all if they get it. And then, I mean, you went through a lot, so I'm going to take my whole 5. And then there's, you know, the pellet shelters. Madeline O'Brien said during the Board of Supervisors meeting that she's not able to acquire the doubles. It's only singles that she can get. So, and that's another thing, you know, we're the county and the city aren't playing very nice, and we need to stop that right now and start playing much nicer and get much better information as we go. If you watch the Board of Supervisors meeting that they had on Tuesday, you will learn a lot about COC, a lot about behavioral health, a lot about what we need to do to help all of our citizens, not just the rich. And as far as the crossroads, the low income, $1,100. I couldn't afford to rent there all by myself. I can tell you that. $1,100. That to me is not low income. And when you're talking 940 something, that is not crossroads. So just don't make criminals out of these people, because we don't have money to build a fire department. How are we going to have money to build a police station? I mean, a jail, a city jail. And that's what we're going at. Thank you. Yeah.
Lorenzo Love. The stated purpose of this ordinance is, quote, to encourage persons experiencing homelessness and others camping in public places to seek opportunities for assistance, unquote. Except there is no assistance, no place for them to go. This is due to the long-standing problem with the Wairika City Council. No planning for the future. At least 3 years ago, the city council started talking about opening an authorized, regulated homeless encampment. And here we are still talking about it, still with no plan to implement it. This would have concentrated the majority of the unsheltered homeless in one place, safe for them, safe for the public, where they could receive services, attend counseling sessions, clean up, and have the possibility of jobs. But the city council back then did not have the courage to ignore the not in my backyard naysayers. Not near the schools, not near the creek, not near the parks, not near the grocery stores, not near the freeway, not near a church, not near the nice people, not where I can see them, not here, not there. At some point, the city council needed to get up on their hind legs and say, here, this is where it will be. We elected them to make decisions, but they couldn't. They failed us. And so this lack of planning for the future caused the disaster area above behavioral health. You have a chance to fix this, but will you? Grants Pass quickly found that criminalizing homelessness does not work. They just opened 4 city-owned homeless campgrounds. Will you be smart enough to open one? Or will you bankrupt the city by making criminals out of people for just existing?
Hello, Tara Kilcollins. I want to make one clarification before I go into my prepared statement. So we had talked about mental health diversion being an option for people. I actually set up the mental health diversion program for behavioral health, and I want to give a very good clarification here. So Penal Code 1001.36 permanently burned into my brain. In Siskiyou County, they only use that for felonies. So somebody their charge has to be escalated to a felony before they can actually get in mental health diversion and get into diversion housing. So if it's a misdemeanor, what I've seen happen time and time again is that they just rack up misdemeanors and misdemeanors. I'm working with somebody right now, I think, who has 28. That we go to court and we try to support, and it's all issues of her homelessness and her addiction. And it's frustrating to see, and we cannot get diversion for her. We get told that, that's up to the district attorney. They just do it by, person by person cases. If they don't like that person, if they have too many charges, they will not divert them. That doesn't happen. So that was my clarification. Now for my state. So the 3 magical words that I think that you guys are all looking for and wanting to find what has caused all of this, it's called a root cause analysis. So if we took the time and we did a root cause analysis, worked with different organizations, even through the COC, I think we have plenty of people in there that can do it. We could find what our community really needs to be fixed and not go making policies about things that, like we've said time and time again, that are addressing the symptoms, but let's actually look at the root cause. So another 5 things I want for you guys tonight is please do not be in a rush to pass this policy. As many of us know, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you guys try to rush this, you're going to end up spending a lot more time in litigation and other issues of trying to correct the policy down the road. Just slow down. It's okay to do that. So any of you can declare a shelter emergency. And if any of you declare a shelter emergency, it doesn't mean that we're going to get a ton of state money or anything. But what it is going to do is that it's going to relax some of the requirements that Base Camp and Beacon of Hope are being hit with. I know that the village is not going to be hit with as many because it's the city and the county doing the whole implementation, and you guys can just, jump through your own hoops and not be stuck up like we are. You're also permitted to request that the language in the policy, you're permitted to request that the language in the policy not enforce the camping ban if no shelter beds are available or during inclement weather. So if we're having a bad storm, we don't enforce the ban because we know people need survival, or people need, losing my words tonight. People need shelter to survive, right? You have to have that. Otherwise you're going to die. And you can also include the language that enforcement is not required if an encampment is clean and safe. So we do have many encampments in town that are clean, that are safe. People are trying to make sure that they have a safe area to be in. And I'd like to see that included in there. So you are the ones who get to tell the attorney how the city wants to proceed, not the other way around. And I hope that you guys can take that to heart, and please do not approve the second reading of the ordinance tonight. It's just not ready yet. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jerry Stalker. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but all the conversation led into some thoughts, and I wanted to share with you. And let me back up 1 second. I don't remember anybody saying that homelessness is a crime, or anybody is going to convict people of homelessness being a crime. I may be incorrect in that, but not this past weekend, but the weekend before, somebody broke into our business, and I guess they didn't steal $950 worth of stuff, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I had talked about that, the previous meeting before that weekend, that breaking up the home encampment or the encampment up on the hill without having a plan is going to be a mistake. I don't understand, and maybe it doesn't matter if I understand or not. This would be my encouragement would be, I think it should be very simple to put in an urban campground. In 1987, I was on a fire camp down Scott River, up on the edge of the Marble Mountains, out in the middle of nowhere. Within 3 days, they had a kitchen, camping area, dining area, showers, bathrooms, and everything that they needed to fulfill their needs at a campsite and provide everything that was needed for firefighters and those supporting them. So I think if you were able to identify a piece of property, get together with your fire chief, your police chief, and your EMS, and talk about all the things that would interfere with them being able to provide the same services to that location as anywhere else in Siskiyou County. I honestly think that this could be done within 2 months, 3 months tops. I know you have regulations that you might have to get approved and government processes that get involved, but it's a no-brainer to me. This guy right here can get anything done. I've seen him do it. Literally, how hard could it be to put in a campground? I know it's difficult. There's no underground, there's no infrastructure. Everything is above surface. All you need is just to do it. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I'm telling you what to do, because that is one thing that I've never tried to do, is tell you guys what to do while you're sitting up here. I've tried to encourage you to do things that hopefully improve what the community needs. And I'm encouraged because even though it's taken a while, I can see you guys making progress on the homeless situation. There's one element that we keep skirting around, and you mentioned it, and another person mentioned it, as not necessarily what it needs to be called out as. And what it needs to be called out is the criminal element of the homelessness. We've talked about the mental illness. We've talked about the people that are just needing a handout. We've talked about the people down on their luck, but there is 100% an element to the homeless situation that are criminal, they're evil, and they want to do harm to other people. The drug addicts, the people breaking into stores, need to be put in jail. Now, is there a place to put them? I don't know. That's part of the problem. So please add that to your all encompassing solution to resolve this problem. There was one other thing that I wanted to pass on. When we got broken into, as you know, I've been open with everybody here before, and I've talked about how difficult it was to open a business and get through COVID, get through the Wairika Street construction. And it was the criminal element that broke my wife's back. A few days after that happened, she said, "I'm done. When our lease is up, I don't want to do this anymore." What a shame to have crime be the reason that a small business in a town goes out of business. We broke a record, I think, in Wairika, and we got to be in the record books, I'm pretty sure. 3 businesses out of 5 were broken into in 2 months. That's like a block. So I would never want to tell you again what you guys should do, but if I were in your situation, if I were in your shoes, I would put this particular piece of this puzzle at the top of the list. Because by eliminating the crime, getting rid of some of the drug use, you're making some of the other problems a lot easier to solve. Hope you all have a great evening.
Again, my name's Ed Harris and I live in Wairika. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Stalker just said. I've traveled literally the country the last 8 years. I've been on the East Coast, traveled into Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. And I've gone out of my way to contact people to address how their communities are addressing this problem. What I have found, and it's the term that I had never heard, but it is the urban campground. And I think that that might be a solution. Where I will piggyback big time with Mr. Stalker is in regards to our policy, it's the criminal element. I worked for the last 8 years at Mount Shasta Title and Escrow. And on a daily basis, I was picking up syringes, human feces, broken glass. Twice it was broken glass in our business. 4 years ago, my dad passed away. The day after, I went up to his gravesite and got introduced to one of Wairika's finest, and I use that term tongue in cheek. And she asked me if I had any drugs on me. I reintroduced myself because I grew up with her mother and I'm friends with her family. I said, I don't do that. I left after paying respects to Dad, and I thought, drove by the gravesite she was at when I first pulled up, and there was a pile of fresh dirt. And I thought, well, that's weird. Something made me turn around, and I called YPD on my way up. I get up there only to see my dad being dug up the day after he was buried. This was the effects of drug. This is a criminal element. A few days later, she appears at my business where I was working. We asked her to leave. She threatened to kill me. She walks down to the greenway. Outside my window, I can see. And she starts not one, not two, but 3 different fires in the middle of summer. Mark Gilman, our great chief of police, was the arresting officer on this. He knew that she'd threatened my life. He knew, even though this wasn't part of the charges on digging up Dad's grave, but the felony fire starting, and this is when the town was pretty damn smoky. He filed the charges, felonies. Cassie was out before Mark was back to the PD, I'm pretty sure. Programs like the Beacon of Hope, we need. We need to help people. I sit on a board and I'm here as an individual, but I see and know of all the programs that are available in this community to a lot of people. The big thing is many do not choose to take the help. Those that want the help, I am all for not giving them the handout, but giving them the hand up. The criminal element and the drug addicts are wanting the handout. Huge difference. Huge difference. In Idaho, when I was there last spring, I talked to a police officer who grew up in Anderson, California. He moved to Idaho to get away from this. There was not a very big noticeable problem of homeless, and I asked him about it. And he kind of smiled and he says, our city council gives us permission to move them. And I've used that term in quotation marks. A gentleman I know quite closely from Washington was a drug addict, bouncing around from camp to camp, living in his car with his dog. He found a program up there that, lo and behold, they started drug testing. He wasn't welcome there if he couldn't pass a drug test. Now, granted, these people down on their luck that are addicted, they need to make the choice to want help. We can't make that. As you think about passing this ordinance, I again come back to the criminal element. Keep them in mind. Right now, when my family visited from Korea with his young family, and when my elderly aunt comes up from Chico, I will not let them, and they don't want to go to Greenhorn at all. They used to like to walk around and feed the ducks. The Greenway. You got as many people down there in the bushes as you do up on the hill. Those are issues that need to be taken on. Councilman Kaeg, I couldn't agree with you more. You said if we want to fix the problem, we got to fix the youth. I agree. When I first moved to Virginia, I ran a youth program in Loudoun County for 2,400 kids. We took them to pools. No pool. And I realize my time's up, but I will end on this. Took the kids to community parks. Do we really want to take young kids to Greenhorn right now? Community theaters. The three things I just mentioned, this town had good ones, and we don't have any of that right now. So as you think about the ordinance and we think about the symptoms, the problem is, how do we cure those symptoms? We give the kids programs. Right now, we don't have that for them. And the YMCA is not the cure-all. They're a great entity, but the kids should be able to go to the parks when they want. And lastly,
Real quick, hurry up.
what my notes are on, as you consider this ordinance, the rules are already on the book. This I printed off your city website today. And most of it's addressed in 9.50.010, gives the definitions. There's no camping allowed. There's no fires allowed. I want to put a fence up at my house and I know I'm going to need a permit. Did they get a permit on the encampment when they put their fences up? You have one of those gentlemen up there that calls himself the chief of police.
Yeah.
They're not their own community. They're part of our community.
Thank you.
And
Ed.
there's a majority of people I talk to that want our community back. Right?
Thank you, Ed.
And mine's gonna be short because I'm gonna tie all this together, all three. So I'm glad you put all three together. And I'm gonna do this correctly this time. Mr. Mayor and council members, I don't want to give you any more repeated stuff. That's what we don't need. You need encouragement. And I'm gonna tell you, you're looking at the encouragement, and that's what I'm gonna give you in the shortest time. Try not to chase any rabbits. I'm a different type of homeless person that we don't talk about, but some of them are the same way. And I'm going to get rid of, I want us to stop thinking about the ones that don't want to be. You know why they don't want to be? Because the same way in and out, because I know we're not supposed to talk like this, the same way with the people that want to be Christians. They never seen a Christian that act like one. Well, how about us acting like something? Then maybe do programs like, I used to work at a rescue mission. Yeah, they used to be that Redwood Gospel Mission stuff where they let people in and rotate, but they got smart one time. I was volunteering with them, and we haven't even talked about one thing we need to do. And having that law to big criminals, you're backfired on something you haven't even started. And that's what the city, I have to say, has always been doing things backwards. How would you like to do things forward? But it takes the people like me who've been told, from first of all, my homeless was my mother didn't want me. Tried to abort me, and here I am. And I'm the one that said, no more state hospital. I finally got out. I want no more care home. I didn't want SSI. But if I didn't speak up, but also at the same time, we have what we had talked about, like the rescue mission was doing, and we don't have to build another rescue mission, but how about of what we already have, put education in there. Maybe a homeless needs someone like me to go talk to him and say, hey, here's someone that did something, got out of state hospital, went into a care home, learned how to live on his own, now learning to get a job, because thank God we don't have that piece rate work anymore. And I even got to be for 10 years a grief recovery specialist professional in Reading and out to Sonoma County where I can work. And if I can do it, they need to hear me, and we need to do education while we're doing this, not pass a bunch of laws that you're still going to get the rotating stuff that you don't take care of. And so the first part, that's the first part. As far as the ADA law, you know, it changes every year. You know, one of these months, I don't know when, because the manager told me she's got to change my bathroom. I don't know where I'm gonna stay, why they changed my bathroom. But the other thing that I ran into as a person with disability, do you know not all low income places you build are the same? They all got their different laws and depending on where they get their contracts. Do you know that some people decide like what happened to me? Well, I don't know if we want to decide to stay home, low income. And I said, you better make up your mind because I can't stay here. That's when I found out that not all places are the same. Some are only for seniors, some for only for this and that. But I did find a place. But the other thing I also realized that we're always faced with is people like me that cause homeless or anybody else not homeless, no matter how they're homeless. Do you know there's people that take up apartments and stay instead of going from one apartment to the other because they don't like it? So that keeps a lot of homeless from getting something because there's nowhere to go. These are things you need to be reminded of, is that, ADA laws change and you got to keep up with that. And the last one I want to say again, think about really passing this tonight because you're going against what we should be working on first. And I think the first thing is education, if it means taking someone like me to start speaking to people and see if we can educate them. Thank you.
My name is Scott Taylor, and I'm one of the fine homeless in this town. I've heard both sides of it, and a lot of it is right. There's a very bad element up there on the hill. And they're not willing to police themselves, so somebody is going to have to step in there and police that. Sooner rather than later, because it's a vacuum and it's just sucking people in every single day. Waiting isn't going to do anything. This is a do thing. As to those vouchers, it's really difficult to get, first of all. I've jumped through every hoop. I started with behavioral health, got into drug classes. I mean, I've gone every avenue that I can take, but I'm still homeless. I keep being told that, well, you qualify to get into a clean and sober house. When I've walked the bottom of my shoes? I mean, at what point is the help actually get to these people? Yes, there are a lot of people that are homeless by choice. And you can't save everybody. But there's a lot of people that really just need to be saved. Maybe you start there. Maybe you eliminate the close proximity to the drug problem that's up on the hill. I mean, we can only police ourselves to a certain degree. I mean, where I camp, there is a political system that you have to deal with. You can't just go steal something from somebody because you feel like it without there being a consequence for your stupidity. We haven't lost that. But trying to put something in place that is already there, it's on the books. It's enforceable now. It's just simply a matter of language that you don't like. Seems, I'm dumb. Because if I can't afford to feed myself or house myself, what in the hell is your $50 fine going to mean to me? Nothing. Absolutely zero.
Make sure you continue to address us, please.
I made a mistake as a young man, and I was given a sentence. And out of an 8-year sentence, it took me 14 years to get off of it. And that was after I did the 8. All the rest of the time was hoop after hoop after hoop after hoop after hoop after hoop. You bring people to a certain point where they don't care anymore. You get tired of jumping through hoops. You get tired of every day trying a little bit harder than you did the day before. to get a door slammed in your face. Thankfully, I was fortunate. You know, I had good work skills. I was a professional. My felony didn't hold me back. Since then, I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in assisted living facilities. I've worked all over the place. It's never held me back, but I never let it. I always chose to continue moving forward, regardless of the doors that shut in my face. I just walked around them and found another one. There's a lot of people that are really trying to do that. Yeah, there's a lot that aren't. But you can't group them all together. And these one of laws do exactly that. These people need help. That's all they're looking for. Not everybody's looking for a handout. You know, I don't want a handout. I like earning a paycheck. I like the feeling of freedom that it gives me, paying taxes. You know, it felt good that I sent all my kids to college and I paid for it. They didn't have to pay for it. I took care of that. I worked for 18 years. I worked 7 days a week for 18 years straight to pay for my children to go to school and to have what they wanted and to be what they wanted to be. And because as I got older, I had some mental health issues. It, you know, steered me away from that and took me in a different direction entirely. But
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I can't have you come back up. Sorry, Jerry. No, sorry. Just want to remind people of the housekeeping rules. You get one shot at 5 minutes, and please respect our 5-minute time limit. When you hear that buzzard and I say thank you, we need to stop at that point.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we've been at it for almost 2 hours. Is it possible to take a 5-minute break?
Yes, let's take a 7-minute break and come back at 8:30. We'll start. We'll adjourn until 8:30. We'll come back. So 8:30, everybody, let's get back to going. They should have gone first.
Oh, I like you though.
Yes. You. Yeah. If my situation wasn't like with the two bonding a little more with me, I think I would went back. I saw the difference with the two. Yeah. What do you have? And I saw the difference with these two and her getting closer to me. Like, you know, Oreo's gone and she's trying to build that relationship. And I think I got her happy and I think she thought she was like, yeah. I'm glad you did. And I'm gonna keep my eye out. It's so cute. I'm glad you guys rescued him. My back hurts. Yes. Speaking, what'd you do? Fall out?
Last weekend, I was coming off. I'm good. Squats, yeah. Just a little. I started tripping going up. Be careful coming down. Arms out. I'm like, hopefully nobody's seeing me do that. Oh, man, I'm embarrassed.
Wasn't that funny? That like first reaction when you fall down is to get up to see if anybody.
I got a big old scab on my knee right now. It's like, oh.
I stepped off the curb wrong and briefly let us down. Kind of like hit my car a little bit. I looked around. I got my car and like. But at first it's like.
Let me see you now.
She's trying to talk me into. I'm sure we can get a caravan to do it made out.
If I came up with.
No.
Additional parts and you thought you
Yeah.
some of their state parks.
He's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
She's trying to get me to take my. So.
My dog don't like anything small like that. I can't have a cat. No way I could have a cat. My dog would eat it. It's funny because he's not aggressive at all. But little animals like that, I don't know what triggers them.
Everything rotates around her, because we don't really get away. And.
I got enough
So
cats.
we're not.
Mom's got like a nuclear.
Too dangerous. Yeah.
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 You watch the. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, and you have to go just in the day and go to the ocean and do that.
What's her name?
I know.
Yeah. And,
My side piece doing well?
you know, it's either garden or creative. So, yeah, it keeps busy. He has a winter activity in the summer. I think usually that garden this summer.
I think it's cool.
It's really nice. Let me have a chance to chat.
Yeah, we're doing.
Good. Yeah. Like it's over there.
Get off. It is true on that. It's a hard line because we've been there again, like Eddie was talking about. We covered. It wasn't just one thing. Exactly. So that wasn't the ground one, so it did keep your attention. So there is, it's hard to find that balance because the majority of them, like you said, 3 minutes, that's all they really have.
Yeah.
But especially
So I was looking at this kind of, I pulled this out. Because my chair was there. She declared a homeless and she that young student that judge passed it out. I was like, in her papers, I was reading something that why was.
wow, I've read that one. Huh. When did this take?
May 30th, it was published May 30th, 2024. She declared an emergency and they got someone filed a lawsuit, the judge cited them for their.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to really read up.
Let's look into this.
Wow.
And well, I've already, if we do it, then I'm gonna get to. I'll look at these things and do this work.
I've been pushing this obviously a long time, you know that.
You guys realize.
Yeah.
It's coming up on.
Yeah, we're not saying.
You're like, like Joe just said.
I was yeah. I was the same, but she.
No, there's a.
It was already public. Yeah. No, because she said something about.
Like I said, I've
Certainly brought it up here, so that's what I'm.
brought it up numerous times and it's like.
Still city thing that wasn't said, I was clarifying something that was said, saying, it does sound like a good idea, so that's what I was showing.
I'm all ready to jump in.
That's my, obviously. Because we got down outside. No matter what I do. Okay. Face. Not like you're not branch. I know, no, absolutely. No, and it's, so are you currently up there right now? I can say I didn't see you up where it's like, yeah, no, I thought I actually, I look like down the street. Okay, good. That's the problem I have with up there. Thanks for. Yeah, so my presentation.
Who sets up the agenda?
And the problem is, this is why. Thanks. We'll take him side. I know, I should have been. Proper place.
You know.
There's something important.
Just so you know, my position. I'm sure this is the lighter the better. I know, so my heart is obviously. But we proper location. And regulation, proper thing. We need different structures, and that's not a problem. Not that it's, not that.
I know. Thank you very much.
I never like there, recycling center. So, but it's not that.
I understand. Going to.
You've only been so far, and you're flipping on his.
Are you looking for one? Obviously, that's my special. I'm a judge. You call me, we need to have a conversation.
When's your first time again? So let's get a hold of me. Let's make something serious. And I'm dead serious. So I got Mike, I don't, he actually is on our board in COC. He's previously. That's a question. He works. So you can let us see, let's see. Need to fix it. I'm for programs. We in the box. Work for best ways. That's what I'm doing with Mike. I'm glad you're. That's perfect. Left construction, that's all I do. That's my efforts. Always. That's why, like I said, I helped Mike out. He had a little short little spill just recently. At the hill for 2 weeks. Clean up. Yeah. Cousin's back in Kansas right now. Oh, it's. Yeah, I can't. You're tougher than me, I guarantee you that. Holy cow, what's up? Oh, no. I talked to gal, she was almost traveling through.
I know.
Get stopped.
I have no idea where my summer went.
Thank you, Scott. All right, thanks.
Right, we'll adjourn at 8:38. Okay.
Okay. Now that you all had your 5 minutes, I get mine. First of all, I don't have a whole lot, hopefully not to say. I just want to support the resolution. I believe it's the foundation that we need to get started. And it gives us the opportunity when it's ready. When we are ready, we can make a move and we can get things going. Clearly, you guys are working on the housing situation the best you
Sorry,
can.
real quick, just state your name for the record.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Diane Collier.
All right,
Wairika.
thank you.
You guys are already working on some housing opportunities to get some of these people into facilities. So it's not like you haven't been doing that. You have taken into account every different type of person there is. And I'd like to say a lot of these people do want to help themselves because they help themselves to my stuff on my property all the time. So I'm all for the teeth in the ordinance. It's just like the county with the dope out there in Shasta Vistas. We had no teeth in our ordinances and our code enforcement. Therefore, we got nowhere. They can write code violations all day long, but this resolution gives you that opportunity to put the teeth in it in the court of law. So what happens after that? You know, we all know that officers can give warnings. We all know there's discretion, judges, prosecutors. We know that's going to be there. And so I do support that. And then, as far as when you're talking about symptoms and whatnot, this is just a Band-Aid, all this housing, all this stuff, because you got all this grant money. Number one, that grant money is our taxpayer dollars. They took it from us and told us how we're going to use it instead of letting us use it in the first place the way we needed it. So thank you for, taking our tax dollars and telling us how to spend it. And the state gives billions and billions of dollars to behavioral health, human services. Then they write in all these policies and regulations that give you just enough to keep it screwed up so that people can't really get the help they need. And you just heard all the stuff they have to deal with. So, we're facing many, many years of a big, big complex problem. The real origin of this is something that's not for tonight, but it's decades deep. So I just want to support that, move on, and say thank you for getting this far. Oh, I do have a question. I'm sorry. How are we going to pay? What happens? I would like to know, and this is maybe something I can get with Jason on later, but we've got the initial startup. We get the housing in effect. Who's going to maintain the buildings? What's that going to cost us? How long does the grant last? Does the grant keep paying us to maintain that? How much staff do we need to do all this? What's happens when they trash the apartments and they don't take care of them? Who's fixing them? Who's paying for that? There's a lot of costs that, yeah, you get it started. Then what? Then what's the long-term? I'd like to know the long-term cost effect of all of this that we've started. And then what are we going to be on the hook for as the city that we probably won't be able to afford? That's what I would like to know. And if you have some of that information, Jason, I can contact you later. Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Jess Harris. I know we've heard the arguments between whether or not, this is a solution, this is not a solution. I would urge you to look at this as a tool of prevention. It's easy to look at the group of people that are here right now and talk about this resolution ordinance. But what you really need to be looking at is as other cities and communities are implementing things like this, those people have to go somewhere. And if you don't have this tool, they're probably going to end up here, and you're probably not going to have the resources to handle it. As Diane was saying, very similar to the Shasta Vista issue. Without being proactive and looking at this down the road. I know everybody wants to look at this as a solution for right now or a not solution for right now, but this is a way to have that direction and those laws in place for, say you wake up one morning and the hill is 3 times bigger than it used to be because they just kicked them out of an encampment down south or from up north. You have to be proactive in this. You can't wait till it's on the front door. And, there's always discretion when you're handling things like this. This doesn't mean we pass this tonight and in 30 days we just go completely kick them off the hill. Like you have flexibility here. And so, I would urge you to acknowledge that you have that flexibility, know that you have that power, and then pass this ordinance so that, say you have that, you wake up one morning and the hill is 3 times larger than it was. You have those tools in place to handle that and clean it out before it becomes too much for the city. Thank you.
I don't know why, but this always makes me smile when I do this. I love this. Can I have it when you're all done with this? Louise Gliado, Wairika. And I'm going to be repeating a couple things that were just said before me because I think it needs repeating. When we were looking at having an ordinance for marijuana in the county, we researched other counties to find out what they were doing, and we sent it to our Board of Supervisors, and we asked the Board of Supervisors, be as strict as the law will allow you. Well, they weren't as strict as the law would allow. And what happened was all the other counties that had really strict ordinance on marijuana, all the people came here, and that's how we ended up with what we have is the drug cartels we have. And it's really a bad problem, and it got out of hand, and it didn't need to happen. And that's how I see what could happen with this. I am urging you to pass the ordinance and do the second reading and pass it tonight. Because my concern is if we don't do it, all the other counties and cities are looking at the same thing. They're worried about the governor cutting off their money if they don't do something about it. And I think if we're not really strict and have something in place, we're going to have a lot of people from outside coming and being homeless here. Now, you all know that you have a specialist on the city council, and it's Dwayne Kay. He's been the coordinator for the homelessness in our county and also Northern California. He's the expert on it. And I did talk to him about it because I wanted more insight about what was going on with the homeless. And one of the things he pointed out to me, and I don't know if you've considered this, but we talked about how many beds or places we would have for homeless people. And what he said to me is he would doubt very much if the base camp was even half full when it opened. He said the people that are living on the hill, the vast majority, not all of them, but the vast majority don't want to leave their stuff, because when they go into base camp, they can't bring alcohol in with them. They can't bring drugs in with them. So what are they going to do with their stuff while they're there and leave their tents or what their belongings on the hill? He also told me that they steal from each other. They actually, when someone is asleep, they'll go in their tent and take their backpack or whatever they can do. And I'm concerned about the citizens here. I'm concerned about people on the hill. Yes, they're human beings. Yes, they're not going to evaporate when we when we do this ordinance. But what about the rest of us? What about our merchants? I know that the council wants to improve and have more business here and to increase the business and to promote business. But these people that are camping out on the sidewalks and going in and stealing things, they're hurting the business. They're hurting all the businesses here, and it hurts for my two kids came and took care of me when I had my knee surgery. One of them lives in Seattle, one lives in Hawaii. They were shocked on what they saw up on the hill. So I think we really need to address that. I'm concerned about fires. We had Mr. Harris talked about the fires that they were doing. I'm concerned about vectors. I'm concerned about diseases up there. I'm concerned about the crime and the drugs. I was also told that at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody drives up at the hill on the motorcycle and sells them fentanyl. Well, that's a magnet for drug dealers. They have a place right there where they can go. They don't have to shop around and look for their customers. Their customers are all there. So I'm going to, again, urge you to pass this ordinance tonight as it is. We need something really strong, and it's just a tool. It's just the beginning. And I think we do have some leeway in how we enforce it. Thank you.
Mayor and council members, my name is Luther Finley. I'm with the Wairika Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I'm the Social Services Director. And every Tuesday night, we prepare meals and take them out to the people on the hill on the Greenway and in the strip mall there with Rayleigh's and Walmart. And it's sort of like a vehicle just for us to be able to meet them and look them in the eye, call them by their names, give them hugs, and treat them like human beings. And there's so many different stories out there. But tonight we prepared 80 meals, and it was gone just like that. And there was a lot of new people, and some of the new people were, they said they came down from Oregon, from and they're coming in, because they're getting pushed out from their places. And I love these people, and I'm not one way or the other. I'm just giving my intel, what I know. But there's a lot of regulars that are here always, and but there's a lot of new people. And so anyways, but they're God's people, and Jesus died for them. And I tell them that there's no homeless in heaven, and I said, Jesus saves. And anyways, but it's a honor and a privilege to be able to do it. And I know a lot of people think it's impolitically correct, that we're enabling them, but it's sort of a vehicle just to look them in the eye, call them by their name, and just tell them Jesus loves you, and they're people. So, thank you.
Guy Scott, Wairika. This has been, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. With all the information that we got this evening, all the new information that Jason Ledbetter gave us, and then some of the testimonies and some things that Councilman Keg said. This is a tough one. This is really tough. There's no real right and wrong. Interesting day today. I went and got my hair cut, and I was talking to a couple of guys in there who work with the homeless. And I said, well, I work with the homeless too. In fact, today we've fed a couple people and we were talking, and they feed a lot of homeless. They do about 120 lunches a week. And I said, what do you guys think about the ordinance? I mean, I just want to hear what other people think about it. And without getting into the whole discussion, they were for it. So I was talking to two homeless people today that I know. I said, what do you guys think about the ordinance? You know, completely taking a neutral position on it. They said, you know, we're for it too. I said, well, why would you be for it? She said, because those people up on the hill, now this is a thing among the homeless, so that's got to go. They've got to go. And I was surprised to hear that. And I wasn't taking a side on it. I really wanted to know what they thought about it. And they were afraid of them. For the most part, they were afraid of the people on the hill. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. And then both Harrises, I don't know if you guys are related. Are you guys related? Oh, okay, apparently not, or you would know. Apparently not. I mean, that was a pretty convincing what about the crime. I really think that's the nexus of the problem. I don't think people have a problem with homeless people so much as the crime. That's the problem, is the crime. And because we all have in our heart, we want to, well, not all of us, but a lot of us want to help people. But it's the crime. As being former merchants, as being a pastor, as being a person in this community, you know, I can go on both sides of this thing. I'm pulled both ways. I'll be honest with you, Lori, I am pulled on both sides of this. I really am, because I've seen both sides of it. And I've been involved with both sides of it. I was with Beacon of Hope, and I fed people for 3 years. And I was the guy at the door that did the breathalyzer, and I told them what they had to do. And I mean, I get it. I get it. And yet some of my good friends are homeless. And it's hard. It's hard to make that decision against people. But I think the bottom line, and I think both the Harrises hit it, is that, and this is something, this is almost a platitude, but we do need to give law enforcement. I'm in favor of the ordinance, because I think Chief Gilman, who's not here, but I think that if he uses discretion, and I know that I don't know this, but I think that he would. We're not out, this isn't a roundup, this isn't a rodeo. We're not trying to get all the people and drive them off their place. But there's an element that we need to have the legal, we need to have the law behind us, that we can take care of the people that are just criminals. Let's face it. And that's why I think the ordinance is necessary. It hurts me to say that. I don't want to drive anybody away from where they're living. But at the same time, there's an accountability, okay? We're accountable for what we do. Everybody's accountable for what they do. And if you give up that accountability, I will use it as the word responsibility. If you give up the responsibility of how you live your life, and it affects my life, and now homelessness does, it affects our lives, then I have due cause to say, okay, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to have to do it. And it doesn't have to be done in any kind of a way to, what's the words I want to use? It has to be done ethically, morally. This gentleman said, as Christ would treat us, that's what we need to do. But we've got to give, we're a nation of laws, right? This is a nation of laws. And fortunately, we could use a law. We want to protect the innocent. We want to protect the women and the children. We want to protect those that can't protect themselves. And I think that this ordinance would give us the teeth to do that. Perfect. So thank you for that. Thank you.
All right. There's no other public comment. I will close public comment at this time. And we will go back to the 3 items for councilman discussion and what are the wishes of the council. So we'll go back to 8A. That was refreshing memory. This is Mr. Ledbetter came and spoke to us about the housing options and housing projects for the house community. Says recommends to the council action discuss the current list of known projects that are completed or in process and attempt to provide housing for those living experience homelessness while providing input on the possibility of future projects. So are you just looking for direction, Mr. Ledbetter, on proceeding with the current projects you're working on and the possibility of the future as well?
Yeah, I think that ultimately, if I were to solve homelessness, I would just look at the problem statement. And for me, it's pretty easy, is that people don't have a home and they need a housing unit. And so if it were left up to me, that's what I would do. And so ultimately, it's a little bit more than just, yeah, that's great, we're doing these things. I'm more curious to have a real conversation this evening about, is there interest from this council in more? Is there interest? Because I really truly believe that how do you combat homelessness? If you want to be preventative with homelessness, that's low income housing. That's having locations where people can afford to live while they're working, ultimately. So my question is, when you look at the point in time count, it's juxtaposed with a number of projects that are vastly lower than that point in time count. So if you're concerned about not having housing locations for homeless people because you're going to ban camping, you're not going to ban. The ordinance tonight is not banning homelessness. It's banning camping for all. And it's not going to be no camping for you because you look like you're a criminal, but you can camp because you look like you're not. It's going to be banning camping for everybody. And so ultimately, I'd like to know, do you want me to go get more low-income housing? Do you want me to bypass the county and just take on these projects as my own? We're not the social worker city. So that's the type of information I'm looking for this evening, is to really get a consensus from the 5 of you that you say, Jason, we do want a home key. I want a 100-unit home key. Jason, I want another shelter. And then that way I take that information, I start the process, because these things in anything, they take time, but ultimately they're going to take a few years to go from concept to digging a shovel into the ground. So that's what I'm really looking for. If you do want to address that, I think it was more along the lines of what a plan is. And so really it's up to you guys if you're interested in discussing that now or discussing that in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Any comments or questions from the council at this time?
Look at me.
Yeah.
I know I was going to the right for some reason. Councilman Baker.
I do just have a couple of comments and then a direction that I would like to see the city of Wairika explore. And it is my opinion that housing first has not worked across our nation. It has not worked across our state. And there is so much more, as we heard tonight, root causes to homelessness. And I don't, it overwhelms me to think about the city of Wairika becoming social services. I believe that the county, that's the county's place. This is my opinion. I believe that that's the county's place. I think that the city of Wairika, it frustrates me when I have heard from so many people the last couple of weeks that, the city isn't doing anything and they're not working with the county. And there has been a lot that has been done behind the scenes. And I would like to see us continue to work through the continuum of care. And I would like to see the county offering more services. And, you know, I am not an expert in this area, so what I'm going to say is may not be exactly correct, but I was under the belief that each county is supposed to, the state has mandated that each county have a mental health facility. And I would like, as the city, to support the county in any way that we can in bringing a mental health facility to the Wairika area. And along with that, I know that there's probably going to be a couple of council members that fall out of their seat when I say this, but I think we need to explore the possibility, not explore the possibility. I think we need to open up an urban campground, but I believe that we need to do it correctly with guidelines in place and take a look at successful urban campgrounds from other communities and make that a priority right now. That's my desire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent feedback. So I really appreciate that, because I can take that, the consensus of what's said this evening, and then we can start something with staff to prepare to bring you things to review.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Baker.
Flip it on the other side.
I thought that was coming. Thank you.
So I might as well,
Councilman
might
Kay.
as well piggyback on that. I obviously brought that to forward on conversation quite a bit on the urban campsite. There is definitely a time and a place for that. I've been pushing for that for what now, Mr. McCoy, about 5 years now?
5 years, 5, 6.
So yeah, there's a lot been going on the back scenes that we've had numerous roadblocks. We would definitely not be in the position we are in if we didn't have the roadblocks that's been presented. If we could have moved forward 5 years ago on some of these things, but that's behind us. So we're just moving forward. And yes, I would like to see that to move forward. The other thing I would like to look at, and we've discussed this previously, is a shelter crisis and moving forward on that. I really feel that the shelter, the project base camp, like Mr. Davis stated, can be opened up sooner than later. I've actually talked to the main head directors on the base camp project, and they're willing to work with whatever we can give them on trying to move forward on that, on their project. So I really think that we can get around some of those barriers and open up the base camp as soon as possible. I think it's possible. I really do. And that would alleviate a lot of the issues that we're having this discussion on right now on how soon we could clean up the hill. Obviously the hill is a major issue, a major problem that we need to address. So is the Greenway. Anybody that's walked the Greenway, daring to walk the Greenway, I should say, will find out that there is a lot of drugs and whatnot going on. The hill is absolutely that. I just spoke to some other individuals this weekend, again, as I stated on the last meeting, that there was another individual that came into this area, newcomer, and went to the hill and ended up getting hooked on fentanyl. So this is a huge problem, and it is a problem that can be fixed when we have, like Luis Gliado stated, when we have a central location for these drugs to be dropped off at. It is a problem, and it is happening in all times of the day. Talk to the officer that actually patrols NorCal, Pfeiffer now, and he actually stated that he sees it happen all the time, that they're dropping off drugs up there. So we need to get that cleaned up to keep our citizens safe so that other problems don't happen. And so we don't get other people addicted to drugs. It's not a thing that we want to see happen. fentanyl is a crazy thing that's highly addictive and hard to get off of from everybody I talk to. So we need to address that. But the base camp, I think, is a good step. Project, any home key is something to, I think we've had this discussion, is something to look into. We need to find out, bring in back some more details of what that means. Like I said, long-term, like it was stated earlier, long-term, what that means. I know a lot of people don't agree with, a lot of grant programs and whatnot that come from the state and go through these and supporting housing and stuff like that. But like Mr. Ledbetter stated, that sometimes just getting some of these individuals off the street is all they need for help. A prime example is Mr. Scott that was just made his testimony earlier. Good guy, he's trying, and just so everybody knows, he's gonna come to my shop tomorrow. So we're gonna try to get him some help and get him some work. So that's where you need to fix the problem. The guys that are willing to take that extra step, like him, and work, I'm willing to put them to work. So that's where we need to fix those problems. So work programs, when you get to base camp, that's why base camp needs to be opened up, because Six Stones that's in there actually has work programs that get them on the track of recovery and keeps them occupied and gets them something to do. So that's my point on direction, what we need to go. I think there'll be probably some more comments from other people. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Councilman Davis. Item 8A.
We're not going to solve the homeless problem. What we're trying to deal with is to solve the camping problem in Wairika right now. That's what this ordinance is about. It does affect the homeless, but it's the camping ordinance, what we're interested in. And the other thing there's a couple other things I want to say. First off, I support wholeheartedly the urban campground. We've talked about this previously, probably, I've only been on the council for a year and a half, but we've talked about it before, a bit. But I think it's something we should focus on and see if we can do that with some type of people that are there to help make sure the campground's not destroyed, the people check in and check out, that type of thing. We have one glaring problem with our city when it comes to folks that end up on the hill, is that if Scott Valley has them, somebody said it and it didn't have any homeless. I don't believe that, but Scott Valley has them, they ship them to the county jail. And when the county jail removes them, they end up being housed here in Wairika someplace. Same thing with Mount Shasta and same thing with Dunsmuir, Weed, and so on. So we have the only county jail. And so it attracts the problem. So that's something we can't solve. We can just deal with it. I think the last thing I'd like to say, and I want to know you folks to know, fellow council people, that I think we should proceed forward with these two ordinances. And I think we should do the Exhibit A to have the corrections that Andrew recommended and proceed forward. That's what I think.
Thank you, Councilman
Mr.
Davis.
Mayor.
Councilman McCoy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna address the
8A is what we're on.
the housing options.
Yeah.
We definitely need housing in Wairika. We already have some public knowledge. I think that we have some housing going in on North Deer Creek, and we also have housing going in down here on South Oregon. That's public knowledge. If you're not aware of that, please stop one of us or the city manager, I guess, or the city planner to talk about that. So we've got that stuff going in. Housing doesn't go in quickly. I'm not gonna address most of everything. I'm gonna be wholeheartedly in agreement with Councilwoman Baker that we need a homeless camp. I'll go so far as to provide the area that we need to move it, and that is right next to behavioral health. So we need to buy that lot and we need to put it right next to behavioral health. That lot's up for sale. That way they have services immediately. For those of you who haven't seen a homeless camp, typically what it is it's fenced in and there's green fence, green netting around it. That's not done for the people that live there. It's done for the privacy of the homeless or the unhoused. That would be a great place. It's close. It doesn't take a lot to set up. You don't put concrete in, you use bark. I think we could probably get bark donated. Dwayne and I have been up multiple times, along with Steve Renner from Beacon of Hope, to see what's going on up in Medford. They are doing a wonderful job. Medford has always had, in the Rogue Valley, they have always had the homeless from Jacksonville, Central Point doesn't have homeless. Matter of fact, your city manager, he's from Wairika, he'll tell you, no, they all go to the camp in Medford, because the camp is run so well. If you run a good camp, you have it supervised, you check people in and out, you make sure that, you know, there are hours that they go in and out. They only have what do they have there, 10 by 10 space that they can camp on? Those are the rules if you're gonna come down there. And I think that in that respect, a homeless camp would be wonderful. If you haven't been up, I would encourage you to go up to the homeless camps up in Medford and take a look at it. The city liked it so much that they had an extra $1 million burning a hole in their pocket, and they gave it to this particular organization, Rogue Retreat, and told them buy another piece of land. So I'm going to agree with you there. I think I'm going to probably reserve the rest of my comments for later. So I do want to comment on one thing though. One last thing. If we have Aetna, Fort Jones, Weed, Mount Shasta shipping their people to us, been illegal prior to the Supreme Court decision. And I think we need to approach this as an issue. We need our attorney to start working on it, to get some letters written to those cities to let them know to cease and desist. We don't want them shipping people here to put them in jail or otherwise because they're homeless. It's not the right thing to do. They don't live here. So the people that I run into all live here. They're all from here. Even the 12 high school kids that went to Wairika High, they all live here. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman McCoy. All right, with that said, for me, I would say let's yes, the urban campground we need to proceed on. The pallet shelter, I know 17 is not going to be efficient at all. I mean, I know this is probably a pilot program for the county, but that will probably need to expand to probably triple the size if I'm probably being realistic. I like to see that probably even double or triple. We know we have a couple of good housing projects coming down that are market rent. Not everybody's can afford that, but I like to see probably the Home Key and then 2 other projects come that are affordable housing, or like the Crossroads project. So that's what I would like to see. And I think that's a real, I know it's a big ask, but I think that's realistically what the city is going to need for the future of housing. And housing's is for everybody, but we know we have 2 great market rents coming down, but they're going to be pretty expensive for people who have good jobs. We're going to need housing for people in the lower income side, and having this one facility and 3 facilities or whatever, 4 or 5 we have on Foothill are not going to be meeting the needs of our lower income or even senior, because our seniors that are on Social Security are even considered low income. Under 32.6 a year, or 32.4 a year is considered low income. So make sure everybody knows that when you say low income, they're putting a stereotype on some people, but it's under 32.6 a year now. So with that said, let's move on to 8. B, this is the agenda title, resolution establishing procedures for the notice, removal, and storage of personal property at encampments and finding such action exempt from CEQA. The recommended city council action is the motion to approve resolution 2024-38, the city council of the city of Wairika adopting the policy for the notice, removal, storage of personal property at the encampments. Of course, there were some recommendations that came from Mr. Jared for some changes. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh.
First we could-
Uh-huh.
we could, consent by the council to waive the full reading.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Is there consent from the council to waive the full reading?
Of the resolution, I'm confused.
The full reading, yeah.
I'm sorry. we're
Oh,
calling a resolution.
The resolution, the
We're calling
ordinance,
the
sorry.
res-
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I was like, what?
Yes.
Don't confuse me. If I'm ready. It's been a long night. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to say the same thing I said last week or 2 weeks ago. There's no need to rush this. This is what happens when you rush things that we have to make changes and that sort of thing. I'm not blaming our city attorney. I think his changes are great. I think they're wonderful, Mr. Jared. But I think in order to give the public a chance to look at it, to see it, I would say that this thing needs to be, Exhibit A needs to be dropped tonight as far as the vote goes, and then bring it back in 2 or 4 weeks after we and the public have had a chance to look it over, make sure that everything is worded correctly. So.
Is
I
okay?
just want to comment on top of that.
Okay.
Fine. And I understand what Mr. McCoy is saying, but the changes that our attorney is presenting is only giving more time, which is respectful for what's the purpose of these individuals. So giving more time for them to accommodate or to get their belongings or whatnot. So what Mr. Jared has presented actually presents them with more time. So it's actually a betterment of the resolution. So I don't think it's changed enough it's not going the opposite way, put it that way. The resolution's not shortening the time, it's adding to the time. So I feel that it's adequate the way it stands, with the changes of what Mr. Jared has presented.
Council Baker?
I actually would like to go ahead and make the motion to
Okay.
approve the resolution establishing procedures for the notice removal and storage of personal property at encampments, and finding that such action is exempt from CEQA, to include the changes recommended by our city attorney on page 68, under paragraph 2, section A. Post the notice to vacate at least 72 hours before the beginning of the encampment removal. On page 69, section 4, add a paragraph G that reads that it's to include the manner for requesting reasonable accommodations under ADA. And also on that page, under section D, section 6, any personal property that is collected should be stored in a secured location by the city for not less than 120 days, then discarded if not claimed. That's my motion.
All right.
I'll second
I
it.
will second that.
Oh,
Let's go ahead.
you went first, so I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go over here. So you jumped in. So I have a motion from Councilman Baker with said changes and a second from Councilman Kaeg. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg,
Aye.
Councilman Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman McCoy,
Nay.
and Mayor Middleton is aye. So the motion passes 4-1 with the no vote being from Councilman McCoy.
May I address the city attorney about this?
No, I want to go after. No, we already have the motion and passed. So I'm going to go to, item. Oh,
See, but that's okay. We can bring it back another time to vote on.
is there an item that was missed? I
No,
don't know.
that's fine. Go ahead. Trying to save you a little bit of what the attorney told us he wanted to see.
Did you miss item? Sorry, Councilman Baker.
There's 3 things.
There's 3 things. No.
Okay, never mind.
All right.
I wrote down the 4 that you told us, so,
I had
especially in regards to post-traumatic stress disorder.
3.
That was part of the ADA.
That was part
Okay.
of the vacating, how it's posted and when it's posted. So that's okay. You can bring it back
I
another
will-
time if he wants to add it. If not, then what I wrote was in error.
Okay. Item 8C. The second reading of ordinance number 878, amending chapter 9.45, protection of the school bus bus stops, critical infrastructure, wild risk areas of the Rankin Municipal Code to be called camping and storage of property in public places prohibited, amending chapter 9.50 park regulations and finding the ordinance exempt from CEQA. The recommended city council action before you is the motion to waive all reading of the ordinance and approve the second reading of ordinance number 878 titled an ordinance of the city council of the city of Eureka, California, amending chapter 9.45 protection of the school children, bus stops, critical infrastructure, and wildfire risk areas to the Eureka Municipal Code to be called camping and storage of property in public places prohibited, amending chapter 9.50 park regulations and finding the ordinance exempt from CEQA and finding such action exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilman Davis.
I'd like to ask for an amendment to that motion for this ordinance to take effect November 1st, 2024.
That's fine with me.
So you'll make the motion with the request to take effect November 1st, 2024.
I'd like to ask a clarifying question.
Okay.
Clarifying question.
Councilman Quay?
Mr. Ledbetter and our city attorney, when this takes effect, how are you going to enforce it? Are we going to allow people to kind of do whatever they want, like we've done with building codes in the past? And some people come in and they get preferential treatment, not now, but they did 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago. And then we have an ordinance, but no, we're not going to do it for Johnny Jones, but we will do it on Sally Smith. So I know that's a loaded question, but I can't see enforcing it if it's not enforced uniformly.
Yeah, so ultimately, just as with any other municipal code that we have in the city of Wairika, there'll be, staffing will determine how appropriate we can do enforcement. So ultimately, if I were just kind of, planning this out already, our focus would really be Campus Drive and ultimately to do a complete cleanup on Campus Drive come after November 1st. Now, ultimately, we're going to be at the mercy of the weather because the level of cleanup is going to be really more heavy equipment oriented, but that's not going to happen in one day. And so as we're doing that encampment cleanup, if tents are popping up in other parts of the community, we're just not going to have the staff to go, stop what we're doing and go run over and do that. So, but it'll be enforced uniformly and based off of our attorney, Mr. Jared, then I would really ask the city council to either call special meetings or just within the regularly scheduled meetings if things aren't working out the way that they thought they would work out, or if they want to make alterations or they want to at that time say, please don't enforce this, that we get that direction from the 5 of you. Otherwise, my plan would be to take the staffing that we do have and do enforcement relatively uniformly, but it would be impossible to do the entirety of the city at one time. If I wanted to do code enforcement at the level at which I think code enforcement needs to get done, sometimes I could spend $10 million tomorrow in this community, and I don't have $10 million. So ultimately, I'm spending $100,000 next week on code enforcement. So that's how I would approach it, but that would be really developed out with Chief Gilman, myself, and Public Works, and everybody involved in how we do the cleanups of the encampment.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So you're welcome. So I have the motion from Councilman Davis and
I'll second the motion.
with the amendment of it taking effect November 1st, 2024. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kay.
This is a hard one because I want it actually sooner. I really do, because I feel that we're going to get bombarded before then. But I'll approve it just because I want to get this ball rolling. But yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman McCoy,
This is a knee-jerk reaction to politics. I'll say nay.
nay, and then I'm gonna say yes, and I do agree with the November 1st start date, just because we have I agree with Councilman Baker and the rest of the council that we have several items in the pipeline coming down as far as the housing, and so it will buy us time to get our ducks in the order and hopefully these facilities open. So the motion passes 4-1. Councilman McCoy as the no vote. All right. We have no public hearing and new business. This is me, I guess. This is the agenda title. This is the City of Wairika Proclamation United Against Hate. This has been before the council. This is the third year now it's come before us, and it's passed both times. It's come before us, requested by Molly to be brought back on to the agenda. And so this is the motion to adopt the City of Wairika Proclamation United Against Hate as presented, proclaiming September 21st through September 21st to the 27th, 2024 as United Against Hate Week. And I will open up to council for questions or comments. Okay, I will open to for public comment. I will once we. I think I read it after, right? Dwayne, I read it after, right? Or did I read it first?
Read it.
Oh, I thought I read it afterwards. Do I read it after, Jason, or before? I thought I read it afterwards.
I'm in agreement with Molly that
Okay,
ultimately
want me
you
to read it
read
first?
it now, yeah.
I thought we read it afterwards. Okay, well, I'll read it first and we'll have public comment. Sorry about that. Okay, so the proclamation is whereas the City of Wairika founded on the homeland of indigenous tribes and settled immigrants from around the world. We seek to protect, honor, and uplift the diverse culture of traditions of every citizen from the original inhabitants of the land to our newest arrivals, offering goodwill and equal protection under the law. And whereas the nation enshrines and principles of the equality through many anti-discrimination acts, including the 1964 Civil Rights Act, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that the people of the community, regardless of the race, nation, nation of origin, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, or disability, enjoy the freedom to work, receive an education, worship, and celebrate without fear. And whereas racism and bigotry yield unequal outcomes for housing, education, unemployment, criminal justice, and healthcare, the city's governing the body of elected officials must model inclusive behavior and every opportunity. And whereas hate crimes are on the rise around this nation, silence and apathy are inappropriate responses wherever racially motivated, hate-based, taunting, bullying, verbal abuse, intimidation are observed. It is a fact that an attack against one individual or a group of individuals is a crime against the well-being of the entire community, whereas supporting the education to bring understanding and compassion to a population, whereas ever growing in diversity, we seek build bridges rather than what is that word? Equity.
Acquiesce.
I can pronounce that. I can't even see it. Actually, I should put my glasses on. Access to policies and fear and diverseness. Therefore, bet it resolved that mayor and the members of the city council of the Wairika join the nation in proclaiming September 21st, 2024 as United Against Hate Week. The city of Wairika stands steadfast in our commitment, to foster an inclusive civil environment where everyone in our community is treated with dignity and respect. Okay. It's in the, copy? Okay. So I'll have, Molly, do you want to speak? And then I'll have public comment.
Oh, they do.
I just thought they had their packet, yeah.
Okay. Right, well, been a big heavy night, so. Hopefully this is something that's easy. So why we're here in August is because United Against Hate Week group decided to change it from the third week of November to the third week of September. And so here is their poster. It's like last year's. Not the best timing for me or obviously the council, but that's. Right. So, United Against Hate Weeks. Oh, so I think it's down a little bit. United Against Hate Week started in 2017 as a response to white supremacist rallies held in the Bay Area. Civic leaders wanted to counter the verbal attacks upon traditionally marginalized citizens, people who are the target of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. So they decided that year on a poster campaign using the logo you see here today with the city names on it. This is now spread nationally and internationally. My sister says they have a group in Spokane, Washington. So this poster campaign has evolved into an organization that aims for much more than just putting posters on windows. It's a week for a community to have celebrations, to try to bring down walls of division and replace them with activities that build bridges of solidarity with all people, no matter their religion, culture, sexuality, gender, age, physical ability. United Against Hate Week is co-sponsored by Not in Our Town, a nationally known organization that offers tools to fight the toxicity of hate in communities across the country. Not in Our Town can help set up workshops with public speakers, provide free educational materials and films, such as the PBS production Light in the Darkness, which we screened with their assistance at the library last year. And I'm sorry that none of the council members here attended. Corey Middleton was on our discussion panel. We had a really great event. There's also the California versus Hate, which is a newly established non-emergency system to track hate incidents in California and connect victims with resources they need for justice and healing by use of a hotline phone number or an online anonymous reporting system. So in the first year, which would have been May 2023 to May 2024, they had 1,020 reports of hate acts, which were spread across 80% of our California counties, Siskiyou County being one of them. The incidents occur in both densely populated and rural counties, and also in counties that would traditionally vote blue or counties that traditionally would vote red. So it happens everywhere. And anyone who has the slightest access to news knows that our country is facing divisions, increasing extremism that has led to shameful behavior, intolerance, threats to public officials, and an overall normalizing of aggressive and violent behavior. Just to give a few incidents of hate crimes that I've been aware of in this past few months around the country. I read in the Siskiyou Daily this summer that an Indianapolis suburb
found sandwich baggies filled with sand on their walks and driveways of their homes. And these little packages had slips of paper inserted into them with anti-Semitic messages with propaganda aimed to denigrate Jewish Americans. In Nashville, Tennessee, they are experiencing what their mayor calls terror tourism. So imagine a U-Haul pulling up into town, unloading white nationalists wearing masks and neo-Nazis carrying flags with swastikas, filling up the seats of this council meeting and disrupting civic business after a day of marching down Minor Street, yelling racist slurs at children of color. That's what Nashville's been dealing with this summer. And sadly, closer to home, most painful of all, I just read in last week's paper that a 15-year-old has been taken into custody for allegedly bludgeoning a homeless man to death while he slept on a park bench in Reading. So this proclamation that is before you offers the elected officials of our city a means to commemorate United Against Hate Week. And by endorsing this proclamation, you, as a public servant, have an opportunity to emphasize your commitment to all the people of our community. To say, even though I may never have stood in your shoes, I will do my best to protect and stand up for those who have been shamed, unfairly criminalized, scapegoated, treated with prejudicial bias, and even violently attacked. So we have a new poster from California versus Hate that I think you guys will like. We stand up for each other, which is basically what this proclamation is saying, and to see the heart created by these fingers. So this proclamation is not a new piece of legislation. It has no legal binding, but it has value. We live in a world where social media can warp minds, lead people to blame and hate others rather than embrace and tackle divisive challenges through dialogue, education, and discover our common common visions. So I just find it hard to imagine any clause in this proclamation that any one of you council members would be unwilling to initial. And yes, it's true, we have our rights safeguarded through legislation promising us civil liberties, but the freedom to live without fear is everyone's duty to protect. Now, I must wear some rose-colored glasses because I'm a frequent visitor to Greenhorn Park, which I thought many of us were, but apparently not. And I think it's beautiful. And it's not just the nature, the reservoir, the walking trails, the wildlife and birds, but its beauty is also in the faces I encounter whenever I spend a morning there. Because at Greenhorn Park, I witnessed young men of color bonding on a Saturday morning as they teach each other how to play disc golf. Exercise groups made up of Asian or Latinx youth and women from the local Karuk tribe show up for each other in a commitment to maintain healthy lifestyles. Mixed race families celebrate birthdays. Dogs are paraded. Children are playing and squealing on the play sets. You know, there's folks relaxing and grandparents with their grandkids fishing at their favorite spots. So I think Greenhorn Park is a place where more than anywhere I've been in Siskiyou County, I feel the joy of a multiracial and inclusively oriented community. And I believe we owe it to our next generation to spill goodwill in every direction that we can. So the proclamation in front of you gives this city such an opportunity. I'd like to add, last year we showed a pretty heavy PBS film, Light into Darkness, that really showed us how communities can heal and offered a lot of hope. And horrible things happen, like hate crimes. But this year we're going to have a community book read, and it's The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. It's written by James McBride. It's a fictional novel. And I read that in 2015, the author, James McBride, was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Obama for humanizing the complexities of discussing race in America. So I hope all of you will stop by the library, get a copy, or buy your own if you can, and join us for the discussion on the book on November 2nd. So I'm gonna stop here, and Corey, if you can make it clear that it's a public comment time, I'd appreciate it. I think last year we sort of missed out on that. I understand.
Right. Thank you. Public comment? I think it turned on.
Well, Mayor and City Council, this time I don't want to strike three here, but I'm naming it for the record as Andres Economopoulos. And again, I want to do another education here thing that I think it's very important. I've read every book and I hated everything our country has ever done to form our country. We all done bad things. But I want to make one statement, and I'm going to make something clear that I know that works. That we need to do more than just add one day a year to do this, because it doesn't work. I'm sorry, just like everything else, it doesn't work. We're still fighting. I once in a while, and at least I'm telling the truth, but I also forget once in a while. And so if we, first of all, we do need to hear this, because that might be my last time to share this because of laws that are being changed. If we would just do what God says is love each other, no matter what, that might solve the problem. Let me go one more step further that works. Because of people with disabilities are even sometimes still hated. They're still being told what they couldn't do, which causes me to fight. And at We Care a Lot Foundation, where I was a grief recovery specialist, I was more than that. Our people with developmental disabilities have started an interesting little team called the SAY team, called Same as You. And you know what we did to get paid for to do? And kids loved it. We went and told them stories about how we are the same as you. Now let's take it a little more broader. White, black, women, disabled, we're all the same. Why couldn't we do that? And not just on this nice little thing I might go to if you vote on it, but why couldn't we do something more than just once a year, where people can go in and share their stories, why they can be loved in a positive way? Thank you.
Louise Gliotto, Wairika. I have to stop and think about this for a minute. First of all, I wanted to ask, is there any cost involved for the city? Are we making these posters and putting them out? Is the city having to pay for them? Secondly, this is the third year we've done this. And frankly, I think it's a waste of time. I think that what we need to do is just to post the 10 commandments. And if you follow the 10 commandments, you wouldn't need a proclamation like this. I have not found Wairika to be racist. I've not found it to be hateful. I love it here. I moved here from the Bay Area, and this is a great community. And I don't know why we have to do this every year to do that, because a proclamation does not change attitudes and behavior. Your heart changes attitudes and behavior. And if you just get back to the 10 commandments, we wouldn't need proclamation like this. Thank you.
The Reverend Lori Kaiser Boswell, Wairiki, California. I didn't wear my collar today because the only one I had in the car needed the button that I didn't have with me. I was going to pull rank. I speak in favor of this resolution. Last year, I had the honor of being one of the people on the panel and was very moved by the process. I was saddened when I got an email recently that said, yeah, the city council passed it last year 3-2. And I thought, what? To me, this is this is an automatic. As a community, we need to be united against hate, however that means, whatever we do. I can say, as one of the first 5 parent educators who just did a long class last spring where I got to sit with teenagers while my co-facilitator got to sit with the adults. And as a girls circle facilitator at Jackson Street School, I have heard numbers of stories of bullying that's happening at our beautiful schools. And I don't have to spend much time on social media. And yes, I spend way too much time on social media to see the dehumanizing that happens. We even heard it in some of the public comment earlier tonight. We tried not to, but if I'd kept score, I would have lost count of the dehumanizing terms we use for each other in our world. I know it's just reading a book or just watching a movie and just putting posters, and the one at my church is still there, by the way, but I got another one. I had a Pride Lives Here poster right next to my front porch this spring that somebody walked up to my porch and tore out. It's gone. I have no idea where it is. There happened to be a cute little butterfly on right against my door that said welcome. And it just happened to be rainbow colors because Lori likes rainbow colors. A couple days later, it was gone. My house on Lane Street. People are assaulting it because I'm open and affirming. I wonder what it's like for the people who aren't white, cisgendered, heterosexual, and safe. We have to model for our kids that we believe in this. And I could be wrong. It's been 40 years since I competed in parliamentary procedure, but every year at Churchwide Assembly, we are reminded that when you have a resolution, what you are voting on is the therefore be it resolved. All the stuff that leads before it is not debatable. It's not what you vote on. We vote on therefore let it be resolved. So if you have problems with any of those paragraphs ahead of that, that doesn't matter. Vote on let's designate at least 1 week united against hate. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Mariachi. I don't know how to raise this. So. I'm going to say I'm really proud of us for doing this. I'm proud of those who vote for it. And for the last 3 years, we needed it. We needed it forever, but we need this because we need to stand against hate. And we need to remember that the last thing Jesus said was, love one another. Yeah.
Thank you.
Irony of ironies. I agree with actually what everybody stood up and said. Where I will disagree with Mrs. Gliotto is I totally urge you to pass this. It's like when I used to be a teacher. It's the beginning of the school year type thing. You're reminding the kids, in this case with this resolution, you're reminding the people, look out for your fellow man. And it ties in very well with the meeting earlier tonight. You know, we don't hate the homeless or the campers, but issues need to be faced head on. And this resolution, all that does is kind of remind us to, hey, take a look in the mirror. I'm not perfect. I do have hate in my heart at times, and it's hurtful to me. Not so much the person or group that I'm hating at the time. It's more hurtful to me. So if anything, it's a self-reflection. And I would urge the council to find a way to vote 5-0 on this resolution.
Okay. Another public comment. So after I did read the proclamation, but also I did want to read there is no fiscal impact to the cities. There is no, they have paid for the posters themselves, and so there was no cost to the city involved. All right. With that said, the recommended city council, the motion before you is to adopt the city of Wairika proclamation of United Against Hate as presented and proclaiming September 21st through the 27th, 2024 as United Against Hate Week. Yes. Okay, I guess I'll go back to questions. Questions, Mr. Davis?
This number. 833-808.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of calling that?
Go ahead and come back up to the podium so everybody can hear for the record.
That quickly, I was trying to keep it 5 minutes, so I cut a lot out. Yeah, so that is a way, because hate is in the increase in the nation, especially, you know, after the pandemic, when Asian and Pacific Islanders were suddenly being violently attacked and shamed, spit on, whatever, because apparently they were responsible for the virus. You know, that and many other things have happened, and hateful crimes and incidents are on the increase. So the state of California decided, the Civil Rights Commission, through the Civil Rights Commission of California, to make this hotline available to people so they can call in and tell them, you know, something that happened to them that they felt was a hate incident. They would then be given a connection to different counseling or programs that could help them work through that and then heal. And at the same time, they would be tracking those phone calls from what community they came from. So they'd just get an idea what was happening in the state of California. So that's what that number is.
All right.
Quick comment.
Okay. You guys are killing me.
I'll make it. Yeah, I just think it needs to be stated that it's a bummer that we have to have a resolution that we saying, stating this, you know, it should be in our hearts automatically that there should be no hate. Only thing we should hate is Satan, plain and simple. But that's my religious beliefs too. But it's the proper upbringing and as parents doing the right job and putting God first and raising your kids that way, then you don't have to worry about having hate in their hearts. And it's a bummer that we have to have this, you know, bring this forward, but it's a problem that is, like you said, nationwide, and it's sad to see some of these things happening when it doesn't need to. There's no reason for it, any type of that. And it's just sad that we have to do this. And when it should be automatic, that there shouldn't be any discussion on hate. And like I said, the only thing we should hate is a Satan. And that's it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Craig. Anybody else before I move forward?
I'm going to agree with Councilman Kaeg. It is a shame. It's a shame that we have to put up posters about child abuse, child sexual abuse, rape, all those things. Our people should know that what rape does to a woman. They should know what sexual abuse, how it ruins the life of a child, and yet, or any kind of abuse, and yet we still proclaim, you put those proclamations up to let people know that, you know, if you see child abuse or victim of child abuse, you know, be sure you don't have to be. And then we put a phone number on it. So yeah, it's I agree with the councilman to my left. Thank you.
All right.
Name is.
Whatever.
Dewey.
All right. Thank you, Councilman McCoy. It is a shame, but hate does exist and discrimination exists, and it does exist in our small town, unfortunately. So some people are lucky and some people have been on the receiving ends of being hated against, discriminated against. And so it's just the way it is. It's heartbreaking, but okay. The recommended council action is the motion to adopt the City of Wairika Proclamation United Against Hate as presented and proclaiming September 21st through the 27th, 2024 is United Against Hate Week. Councilman McCoy?
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I'll make the motion, please.
I have a motion from Councilman McCoy
I'll second it.
and a second from Councilman Kaeg. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
No.
Councilman Baker. Councilman Baker.
Yes.
And Mayor Middleton will be aye, since I didn't bring this before you. All right, the motion passes.
I'll be an aye also.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to be on the record.
Okay,
I'm an
okay.
aye.
I was okay. Jeez. All right, the motion passes 4-1 with Davis, Councilman Davis being the no vote. All right. Okay. Ooh. Oh, she's still with us. She didn't bolt out the door. I didn't see her run out of here. Okay, so this is our this is our project manager.
Oh my gosh.
Poor Cindy. Hey, Cindy.
Great night, Cindy.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Item 10B
I think so.
is.
Yes.
The title is Discussion Possible Action, Adopt a Resolution Accepting the Drinking Water State Revolving Funds Planning Grant in the amount of $1,517,000 and authorizing the Finance Director to allocate these funds for the South Wairika Water Supply and Distribution Improvements Project for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Cindy Lynch, Municipal Projects Manager. Before you tonight is sort of a pro forma acceptance of a grant, but as you know, in June of 2023, there were several resolutions brought before you to allow us to apply for grants. And we received this grant that will, it's a planning grant that will allow us to prepare necessary engineering reports, designs, and apply for a construction grant to complete this South Wairika water supply project. The main goal is to reconnect the existing Greenhorn Reservoir to the city's main water supply so that we have backup, essentially, water supply to boost the city and region's drought resiliency. We're also going to have a small water treatment plant to treat the water, and it will be integrated into the city's SCADA system. And we're going to be adding about 7 miles of water main to connect all the water more efficiently. If anyone has any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, I leave it to your discretion.
All right. Council members, questions for our project manager?
Cindy,
McCoy?
I want to thank you for all your work on this. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments for council members for our project manager? Nope. Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just want to thank Cindy. I want to thank Public Works, and I just want to remind folks, because we do, generally at this point, everybody's funneled out of the space, but this is what is exciting for me personally, is that we're talking about redundancy in our water system. And so this is a huge moment, because at some point, the next step after design, we should get a grant to do the actual project, and then we're breaking ground and we're just adding resiliency into our community when it comes to water supply. But we're also adding new infrastructure in basically priming ourselves to be ready for anything that comes in the future as far as climate is concerned. And so we don't talk about and we don't celebrate these projects enough, but this is really the nuts and bolts of what a city government does for their population. I know we talk about a number of things in this space, but if you don't have water when you turn on your tap and you can't flush your toilet, nothing else will matter to you. And so I just think that you should think about that sometimes ultimately, and what does the city provide? This is one of the utilities that is extremely important. And there's so much work that goes into these projects. The bureaucracy of government and the bureaucracy of this country is something that we currently are doing very, very well to go get free money for the community. And so this is not necessarily your money. This is attempting to get as much of that grant money that we can possibly get to make our community better while other people are failing at bureaucracy. So thank you very much, Cindy, because nobody does bureaucracy like you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy, and all the staff involved. We appreciate everything you do. All right, I'll go to public comment. No public comment, okay. Okay, the recommended city council action is the adoption of resolution 2024-39 of the city council of the city of Wairika accepting a drinking water state revolving funds DWSRF grant an amount of $1,517,000 and authorizing the finance director to allocate these funds for the South Wairika Water Supply and Distribution Improvement Project for FY 2024-25. Yeah, that's kind of.
So moved.
Oh,
Somebody said.
I second.
Okay. Councilman Baker makes a motion, second from Councilman Davis. Do roll call. Councilman Kaye?
Aye.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Pro Tim McCoy?
Aye.
And I, Mayor Middleton. The motion passes. Thank you. All right. Okay.
She's like.
City manager and staff reports. Right on up here, Jason. Get on.
Yeah, I just gonna make it real quick. Friday was the final concert in the park. It was wonderful for anybody that happened to attend. I've had a number of meetings about a home key project. We're now at the stage where we're interviewing motel owners, and we'll be touring motels later this week, I believe. I had mentioned in the past, we do have a new code enforcement officer. He was Ranjit. He was in the audience here for most of this meeting before he took off. But we will be cleaning up 2 different properties, one this week on Lennox, and then we're hopeful to get our abatement warrant signed off and to get to a house over on Nugget. And then just celebrating this $1.5 million design that will inevitably lead to somewhere between a $7 or $10 million construction grant at some point. And then we've seen that for the most part, you know, we still have the wastewater collection project that just is kind of dragging through all different aspects of the city. We still need to get into the alleyway of Minor, but the same contractor who did such a wonderful job on South Oregon Street, he is now starting the process of fixing the road where this project took place. And he is currently over in Burgess, in the Burgess Street neighborhood, and eventually will make his way over to Yama, which is pretty torn up at the moment, and then patching up the other locations where all of this work got done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. And no other staff from your end. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll go to council members real quick. Councilman Davis.
We didn't have a fire safe council meeting yet this month. Excuse me. So I have nothing to report in that area.
All right. Council Baker.
I would like to report that my lime green cast is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. I'll leave it at that.
You'll leave it at that? I'll just say you look more comfortable in that chair than you did when they rolled you in here last meeting. You look so glad you're on the mend. All right, Councilman Kaye.
I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet too. I had to have some meetings, but not much to report on homelessness as far as that goes. I think we accomplished more. I think we accomplished more here tonight than anything. So But I just want to comment on the fair. Enjoyed the fair. It was great. It's always fun taking a 3-year-old to the fair and seeing their eyes light up on everything. Then doing the pony ride was probably his highlight of his fun. So, and it was mine too, but it was enjoyable. I hope everybody had a chance to enjoy the fair. So other than that, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
All right.
I'll keep it short and sweet.
Okay.
No,
No, that's it. Okay.
I'll leave it out. It's a late night.
All right. I'm going to just make one request from Mr. Ledbetter, and he could either follow up with me later or the rest of us down the road, and he doesn't have to tell us now. Is just for me and for all of us, is we did talk about the Greenway, and I just noticed the gates are still open by the title company, and just seeing what's going on with the closure of the Greenway. If it's still working, if you could just give us a report down the road. You don't have to do it tonight, but just I didn't notice it was still, I know they've been working on it. But if we could do a report, just get back to me whenever. I'm tired. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Other than that, I know that has kids, they're starting back to school. So everybody, hard to believe summer's just whizzing by to, be observing out there while you're driving, and be cautious of the kiddos that are back to school. And I want to thank everybody for coming. And we know it's a long meeting. We know it's wasn't easy for people to get up and speak, and then our citizens, and not easy for our staff sitting here either and the council to bring this forward. We know it's a very tough decision. We all care. We're all passionate about our community, and I think it's working together as a community, as your elected officials, as the citizens, the more engagement we have without any anger or taking it personal, or just having the conversation is healthy. And just to remember, we all achieve one thing is to live in a great community. So with that, I will wish everybody a good evening, and thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.